So much for joining us on this Tuesday, January 30th, 2018, global transmission. We're going to be here live for the next 4 hours, and the War Room with Owen Schroyer is coming up. We'll have live coverage right after that, right through this first key State of the Union by President Trump, and a lot more coming up tonight at Infowars.com/show, and many of our AM and FM, as well as TV stations, not just radio stations, that are now picking up the transmission. As I predicted, wasn't hard. They voted along party lines to release the memo to the public unless the president bars its release, and then Congress could still go around that, but Trump has signaled he won't do that, and it should be out by Wednesday or Thursday. And so it's following the timeline that I was given by congressional sources last week. And we had Congressman Gates on yesterday in a very important interview that we'll be airing some excerpts of today, saying that these are cornered rats right now and that we're in a real danger zone because there's no telling what they're going to pull or what they're going to do, and that there are criminal investigations going on of these people. And it's believed that when the memo is made public, that is basically to embarrass the Justice Department, who's been sitting on top of these crimes. So it's a big deal. Dems left literally shaking over hashtag release the memo vote. That's an Information Liberation article on Infowars.com. Executive branch now has custody of intel memo for review prior to release. And White House spokesperson Conway has said the president will not release it. It's obviously too soon to do, plus he couldn't break it all down during the State of the Union. And many people are telling the president, and I agree with them, to focus on the successes and to thank the American people for seeing through the propaganda and coming together, and that a lot of the mainstream media is owned by foreign interest and the communist Chinese, and that they are here literally trying to keep Americans from getting control of their government again. That is the stake through the vampire's heart. You explain that these big mega banks are tax exempt. You explain that Bezos and others are basically tax exempt while they push world government and tax increases on the middle class. It's game over. And that's what's happening all over the world. People are discovering globalism, that it's real, that it's unelected, and it's game over. I saw a headline on CNN this morning. Maybe we can pull it up, but I've got a screenshot of it here. It was Titans unite to attack America's tapeworm. Rising healthcare costs drain the U.S. economy. Jeff Bezos, Warren Buffett, and Jamie Dimon want to resolve that. Just document cam shot. I've got it one way or another right here. So that's the front page of CNN. And these are the very people engineering globalism. These are the very people carrying out these operations. And it's sick how they operate. I mean, here's the new headline. CNN's changed their headline to Jeff Bezos, Warren Buffett, and Jamie Dimon want to fix healthcare. Oh, like they fixed everything else, driving things into centralized combines, into monopoly systems. So Jeff Bezos, Warren Buffett, and Jamie Dimon want to fix healthcare when they're the ones that have been pushing for the centralization, for the socialism. The more money you throw at education, taxpayer, the higher the price, the lower the quality. The more money you throw at healthcare, it's government controlled, it creates combines and monopolies and inside boondoggle deals. And it drives up the price, drives down the quality. And so, yeah, it used to be 1/12 of our economy. Then it was 1/10. Now was 1/7. Now under Obamacare, they're saying it's almost 1/5. It's what it's designed to do. The big insurance companies that these guys are all invested in wrote Obamacare as a screw job, and now they're back with a bigger screw job.
You are listening to an Infowars.com frontline report. If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance. From deep in the heart of FEMA Region 6, Austin, Texas, transmitting worldwide, it's Alex Jones.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are here, broadcasting worldwide, awaiting the president who's going to be speaking tonight. And we're going to be carrying the State of the Union, the first State of the Union, this critical State of the Union. Now that we actually have a president who's trying to restore the republic and bring power back to the country, actually bring sovereignty and legislative, executive, judicial control back to the states and back to the people, this is going to be critical. We're going to be looking at some of the statements out of the White House about what we can expect to unfold from this. And I'm told by a little bird in the White House that before I'm off air today, we're going to get talking points that are going to be a preview of what's coming up tonight. That could come in any minute. In fact, that's a phone call I've got to make because I haven't talked to that individual since yesterday. It's always important to remind them of things they've reminded us about because a lot is going on. So look for that coming up today. We'll have live coverage, Infowars.com/show. Many of our TV and radio affiliates will be picking it up, and we're going to be basically commercial-free. We're going to have some breaks and things, but we're going to cut the ads down about 90% during that live transmission, and obviously no ads during the State of the Union itself. So Infowars.com/show. And in the next month, I'll be able to announce 3 new TV satellites, that we're going to be on for our TV affiliates out there. We're getting rid of the one, coming back with a 3. So look for that. This obviously is the big news. The House voted to release the memo. That wasn't a hard prediction to make. That was a vote along party lines. FBI Director Wray shocked to his core by FISA memo. McCabe removed next day. More heads to roll. That's on Infowars.com from the great folks at Zero Hedge. Tucker reveals McCabe is under DOJ scrutiny. That means criminal investigation. That's exactly what I've been told by my sources. Well, I mean, it's going to come out in the memo. Andrew McCabe's pension's worth $1.8 million. Isn't that nice? Continuing along those lines, Jim Acosta spreads fake news, tries to correct it, said that Trump had fired McCabe, but then had to come out later and say that he just left because of all the corruption coming out. And it was too big of an eyesore ahead of the memo that's about to come out, how McCabe quarterbacked, ran the entire operation while telling the president he was loyal to his face and that it was all pure BS. He was one of the main leakers, we now know, and was still under the control of Comey until yesterday. Comey was still directing the FBI. Mueller, Comey, McCabe. That's how it works. So the royal succession has been broken. But because the Clinton crime network chief, Mueller, has had his operatives now, at least at that level, removed, now he will desperately battle, like the old crocodile he is, to try to bring down Trump. Because to the Democratic Party and the rest of them, McCain was their party leader. He's now dying of a brain tumor, stricken. And then we have Mueller, who is their last hope. And of course, he's being completely exposed. And so they just don't know what to do. The country was theirs. Any crime they wanted to commit was theirs. The Clintons could do whatever they wanted. They could meet on tarmacs illegally with the head of the Justice Department. It didn't matter. But all their little plans have now gone down the rat hole. So we've got that Jim Acosta article. Oh, and also other fake news. Public broadcaster admits to increasing booing sounds during Trump's Davos speech. Well, you can actually hear him click it. We'll play that audio first right now. You can't just turn up the boos and then not turn up Trump speaking. You can hear that they've gone in with an effect live and actually added more boos over it, knowing that boos might be coming and they wanted to boost them, then they would use the real low-level boos to then augment larger boos. And we saw this when he went to the Texas, the college championship game that Texas wasn't involved in Alabama, Freudian slip. And he marches in, huge 5-minute standing ovation, but outside there's a small group, maybe 150, booing in the rain when he drives by. And the media said he was booed when he arrived and when he came into the stadium. You had to watch the football game to actually see him getting a standing ovation that went on for almost 5 minutes. But the media would just show the booing outside and say that that's what happened basically inside. So that's how their tactics work. And now the state broadcaster has had to admit that it was a fraud. President Trump gave a speech at Davos, again delivering sharp criticism of the mainstream media. He stated, "It wasn't until I became a politician that I realized how nasty, how mean, how vicious, and how fake the press can be." ARD released a clip of the speech on its Twitter account for popular news program, and it was distinct boos could be heard directly after the president's comments. They went on to admit that they augmented and boosted the boos. That's not how audio works, ladies and gentlemen. They knew boos might be coming. They laid louder boos down over it. They're trying to get out of it saying, okay, well, we did just boost those. You can't in one audio track do that. You've got to go in and you've got to add it if it's live with another stream over it. Now, you can go into After Effects and all the other systems and Pro Tools. I'm talking about video and audio. I'm not an expert at it, but I've followed it for years and edited films and audio many times, as you folks know. And you're sitting there looking at it. You've got to go into the wavelength and turn up only those areas, but it'll distort the audio too much. So instead, they just click a button and pot up boos. Even more fraudulent. So let's go ahead and play that clip.
And it wasn't until I became a politician that I realized how nasty, how mean, how vicious, and how fake the press can be as the cameras start going off in the background. But
hear how fake that is? Boo! Boo! I mean, they just were so lazy. They didn't even have an audio file that started low and went up. They just, oh, that's it. Boo. We've got the boo effect. Okay, somebody boo. We can use that as cover. Boo. Boo. See the audio engineer. Boo. Okay. That's how you do it. Boo. It's ridiculous. Imagine if we were covering an event live tonight, like the State of the Union we're going to cover, and if I said, just add some boos in at critical points. Can you imagine telling I would never even think of anything like that. But see, that's what they really do on shows like Colbert. It's a teleprompter reading actor posing as a comedian, posing as a news person, and then hiding behind the fact they're a comedian to put out fake news. Constant laugh tracks. Or when they have a live studio audience, they have a person there telling you when to applause, telling you when to boo. Because I've been on these shows. I've been on these comedy shows. I've been on these late night shows. But a lot of times, a lot of these shows, like Trevor Noah and Oliver, whatever his name is, I forget all their names. Those are just shot on a soundstage. There's no one there. And it's like a laugh track from a 1960s or 1970s show or something. Oh, look, Archie Bunker's the dumb old white guy. Play the same canned, recorded stuff. I remember being a little kid hating the laugh tracks because I was a little kid watching these shows. I remember going, that's fake. Because I could hear each time it was the same applause, the same whistle, the same whatever. And again, we all know that. That's what I'm saying is they took all of those theatrical things and superimposed it over the news. And it's what they do constantly. So I know you know the tactics. But just the tactics of reporting on 150 people paid by Soros and the Democratic Party to be there booing. They ignore the 78,000 crowds cheering him basically unanimously. It's not about Trump. It's about the truth, and it's about how these people deceive over and over and over again. All right. We're going to come back from the break and get into some of these incredible audio clips of Mr. Schiff, Adam Schiff, who leads the Democrat side of the House Intelligence Committee, squirming how it's a horrible day for America that this memo's coming out. I thought it was nothing. I thought it was fake. I thought Nunes had pulled it out of his rump. You know, it was blah, blah, blah. Now they're like, no, please. Little Adam Schiff. What a good little beady-eyed, smarmy jackass. We'll be right back. I'm Alex Jones.
This is Ad-Free Alex.
Ad-Free Alex. Ad-Free Alex.
Defending the Republic from enemies, foreign and domestic. It's Alex Jones.
All right, I remember more than a year and a half ago when Roger Stone was being called a Russian agent when we were at the RNC, was getting really mad about it and actually, you know, cussing and stuff. And I said, dude, relax. It's ridiculous. No one's going to buy that. We all know it's bull. And then they started calling me a Russian agent. And I got really mad because, you know, it's like saying you raped somebody or you're a traitor. I mean, those are fighting words. Plus, it's wrong to say this about Russia because they're hardly involved in our politics compared to the globalists and multinational corporations and Facebook and Google and Twitter and the communist Chinese. It's also a smokescreen to the real national security issues we have. And our own Pentagon and own CIA and all of them tell us it's the communist Chinese and it's multinational corporations that are taking the country over. Silicon Valley heads are coming out admitting that. Globalism is the big issue with losing sovereignty and losing free market and dealing with monopolies. And then I realized, and the Democrats admitted this, they were going to use this Russiagate thing, even if Hillary got in, to shut down their political competition. And then when she lost, they intended to overturn the election, have new elections run by Homeland Security with an executive order Obama had put in. All 50 states wrote letters, including Democrat attorney generals, unanimously, saying, do not federalize our elections. It violates the Federalist Papers. It violates the Constitution. Separation of the powers. But Trump's never reversed that. I don't know if he understands it or knows it. That's in place. And so you see Schiff saying Tucker Carlson's a Russian agent to his face. McCain on the Senate floor pointing at Rand Paul, Senator Paul, saying, then you are an agent of Putin. You need to be investigated. You work for Putin. Paul just turns and walks off because he voted against giving heavy weapons to Ukraine and escalating this whole thing, which has now happened. It's ridiculous. So that's the big thing Trump's doing wrong, is being bullied by the neocons and others into show them you're tough on Russia and even having more sanctions and aggressive stuff than Obama did. I mean, this is crazy. But I digress. So now we have clips. I mean, I've got so many of them, we can't even play them all, where the Democrats are now saying, we think Devin Nunes, the head of the House Intelligence Committee, he's a Russian agent. And remember, just last week, they sent out hundreds of thousands of letters, Twitter, saying, oh, you don't like Hillary or you don't like the Democrats, you're a Russian bot. And then people started getting mad, so Twitter had to admit, okay, you're not Russian bots. But that was under orders from Schiff, had sent him a letter the day before saying these people are all Russian bots. And they took his orders, just like in that House hearing they had 2 months ago where Congressman Quigley goes, I saw Infowars was #1 at lunch on Twitter. And they go, sir, we censored him at lunch. And Google and Facebook go, we helped too. See, they take orders from these Democrat Congress people. So that's in the hearing. So they call up and they say, you can see the video on Infowars.com, video, dim lawmaker demands Twitter censor Infowars. This is how they operate. So we know last week, Schiff wrote a letter, a public letter, saying all these conservatives are Russian bots. The next day, they start shutting people's accounts off. Then they had to back off and send a letter back because it was such a backlash, saying these are real Americans. We investigated. So imagine, you're a Russian, you're a Russian, you're a Russian. This is ridiculous by the people that are selling us out to the globalists. They're the outside power. So what do? Because we wake up to the fact they're the outside power. That's what's going to bring them down. They have to go, no, you're the outside power. It's the Russians. What have I said is the Trump card for 10 plus years? Expose the globalists are unelected, expose their multinational, expose they're taking over through international agreements, the EU's unelected, it'll all come down. It's happening. I'm not a rocket scientist. Authoritarian, above the law, tax exempt, wanting us to be poor. We don't get to vote on it. We're getting rid of this. We're going to use our old system to take your system down. So now here's one of the video clips. I'll have to go to the next segment with these. There's so many. MSNBC suggests Devin Nunes has become a Russian agent. Then Schiff, very sad day, committee voted to put president's personal interest above national. Oh, the president's personal. We elected the president. You're trying to steal the election from us. See how they spin that, though, that the president isn't America. Very telling when the Democrats said, take Jack Posobiec's security clearance. He's in naval intelligence. And he's a big Trump supporter with one of the biggest Trump fan groups. And the president tweets his stuff all the time and likes him. You can't have somebody in the Navy that the president likes. And we're going, that's how alien these folks are to America. They're like, the president likes him. He can't be trusted. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. The globalist snowflake zone. So they know they're the foreign power. They're the multinational. Russia's kicked the same globalist out. So that's the only kinship we have there. And that's what they're so angry about. But you think they hate Russians that they've had their way with for 85 years? Now, no, they want to have their way with us. And they've already had their way. Partially, they want to have their way. They really want to have their way. People like Bernie Sanders. I've only swindled universities. Now I'm going to swindle the whole country with my wife. You know why she weighs 500 pounds? She ate the student savings bonds. So here it is. Suggests Devin Nunes has become a Russian agent.
Possible that the Republican chairman of the House Intel Committee has been compromised by the Russians? Is it possible that they actually have a Russian agent running the House Intel Committee on the Republican side?
I hope that's not the case. I certainly have no information to suggest that it is. I think that
doesn't his behavior speak of that, though? I mean, I'm not the first person who's raised this. He's behaving like someone who's been compromised.
Listen, pause again. That guy is behaving like somebody that drives around in a white creeper van. Just saying. Now, he does kind of look and act like that, but I could say anything. You know, you guys' behavior looks like you both tortured your wives to death this morning. I'm not saying you literally did that. I mean, no, his behavior is he realizes there's foreign globalist powers in control of this country. And the whole due process has been butchered, and a criminal cabal of Democrats that thought Hillary was going to win, we have the text messages, tried to put out fake info to damage the presidential candidate and the nominee, but you failed on November 8th. We beat you on November 8th. The people, the sleeping giant of every race, color, and creed awakened. The sleeper awakened, and you're in trouble. We're going to go to break and come back with more of this. But these people just absolutely make me sick. Now, let me stop right there.
From the former United States of America, from deep in the heart of Texas, it's Alex Jones.
Here we come now, baby, with the truth again. Not backing down. We got the globalists in a stranglehold. The walls are closing in on them. The globalist criminal Soros stay-behind networks and the Clinton crime networks are hanging on by their fingernails. More and more of them are resigning. Many others are being indicted. That's right, they're operatives at Uranium One. Their entire crime network is being rolled up. The storm is here. The globalists have had their storm. Now we have our storm. I'm going to get back to the MSNBC saying that Devin Nunes must be a Russian agent with no proof. But first, the new article's gone up on Infowars.com and Newswars.com. We need to spread this article because this is what fear looks like. Jamie White writes for Infowars.com, Pelosi melts down over hashtag release the memo on CNN. House Majority Leader Nancy Pelosi melted down on CNN following the House Intelligence Committee vote to release the secret FISA memo, allegedly detailing abuse by the Justice Department and Obama administration. She then gets into an argument with Cuomo. Big shakeups happening. And again, Schiff, who is saying, oh, there's no real evidence. It's all no big deal 2 weeks ago, is don't release the memo. No, it's a sad day for America. Don't put the president's rights above yours, America. You're trying to remove the guy we elected who's had the economy turn around while you guys try to stop it with all your gloom and doom. I'm surprised we've got this much done. Unbelievable. You know, in China, they execute you for trying to cheerlead the economy down. I think that's wrong. I'm just saying these people are allied with China doing in America what China has outlawed. Incredible. So continuing here, ladies and gentlemen, let's go to Nancy Pelosi as she spazzes out on CNN.
Yes, why would they put it at the mercy of Dennis Nunes, who doesn't even read the memo, and say the American people should see it? The DOJ is only one part of the intelligence community. The intelligence community is vast. It's the CIA, the DNI, the National Defense. Everybody has their element of it.
So she calls him, I think, Dennis Miller, not even Dennis Nunes. Does he know he's Devin Nunes, the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee? She said, like, least 12 or more speeches I've seen that George W. Bush is in office, and George W. Bush is a Russian agent, even though he hadn't been in office in 9+ years. And continuing here, we've got her saying it's the director of DNI. So she calls the DNI DNA. So the director of national intelligence is now the director of DNA. So there's just no end to this lady. Let's go ahead and play the next clip where Pelosi turns on Cuomo.
Christopher Wray got the director of the FBI, obviously, recently selected by President Trump. He got the memo. He could have come out and said, this is reckless, don't release it.
Let me just say this with all due respect. You really don't know what you're talking about right now.
But okay. Did Christopher Wray look at it or no?
I can't say whether he did or not, but he did not.
So we probably should watch the whole interview. She is a babbling mess, and they are totally panicked because she was involved. Donna Brazile was involved. The word is Adam Schiff was involved. They've all been in meetings with the Clintons. They've all been in meetings going back before the election even took place on November 8th, fixing all of this fake intelligence and getting the fake warrants. And that's what the FISA memo that's been declassified, the 99 pages, 10% of it is still blacked out, says that the FISA court said 3 times this is illegal. Now let's move on to see what the rest of the fear looks like. Pinhead, Adam Schiff, very sad day. Committee voted to put president's personal interest above the nation.
We had votes today to politicize the intelligence process, to prohibit the FBI and the Department of Justice from expressing their concerns to our committee and to the House, and to selectively release to the public only the majority's distorted memo without the full facts. A very sad day, I think, in the history of this committee. As I said to my committee colleagues during this hearing, sadly, we can fully expect that the President of the United States will not put the national interest over his own personal interest. But it is a sad day indeed when that is also true of our own committee, because today this committee voted to put the President's personal interest, perhaps their own political interest, above the national interest, in denying themselves even the ability to hear from the Department and the FBI. And that is, I think, a deeply regrettable state of affairs. But it does show how, in my view, when you have a deeply flawed person in the Oval Office, that flaw can infect the whole of government. And today, tragically, it infected our committee.
No, Adam Schiff, you are the infection. You're the people that tried to overturn a duly elected president with made-up Russiagate crap when you guys rubbed your eyeballs with the Russians, the Communist Chinese, and anybody else that'll pay you. And you know it. And you know you work for the globalists that have sold this country out and that America's back and you can't stand it. And so the president's supposed to lay down while the media lies and while McCabe lies and while Comey lies and leaks and does all this and then not release the FISA court investigation and other investigations into what you did in those meetings, insurance policies, secret societies. We can't let this guy get elected. We got to get this guy out of office. We got to kill this guy. And you know it's going to come out when the president releases it with those FBI agents dumb enough in text messages on government phones to talk about killing the president. And that's why the former head of counterterrorism for the CIA, then for the FBI, went on television, and so did the former director of the CIA and former director of national intelligence, all went on CNN and CNN coverage of the Aspen Institute in front of the establishment and said he'll be gone in 2 months, and it's not going to be legislative, it's not going to be impeachment, it's not going to be judicial. And everybody goes, what's that mean? And they go, you'll see. They're on TV saying, Trump, we're coming for you. We're going to kill you. To make it look like everything was peachy king for all their operatives and their deep state people. Hold the line. Stay here. You're safe. They're like, in the text messages, none of this is real. There's no Russian collusion. This is dangerous. It's in the text messages. Continue on. McCabe, continue. Press the attack. This is illegal. Do it. You're in this deep enough. Yes, sir. I'll do it. And then they all ran to Congress and ran to the president under his wings. Come on, chickens. Come on, little chickies. Right under the wings. But I'm not going to count my chickens before they hatch. But, man, because, you know, when Darth Vader's got Luke Skywalker and he says, I have you now, he doesn't. So, and, of course, they're really Darth Vader, we're Luke Skywalker. But you got to ask yourself, who's the hero? Who's their Deus Ex? Who's their Millennium Falcon coming screaming in to stop us from stopping them? Because let me tell you something. Right now, the allegory goes either way. We're about to squeeze the trigger and fire those torpedoes down the main reactor shaft. Or you can put us in the other seat. We're Darth Vader, and here comes a Millennium Falcon. We got to blow that thing up politically. So I'd be watching all sixes right now for what they're going to pull, because they want to set a nuke off in D.C. They want to pull some kind of hanky-panky. This is the time they're going to do it. More incredible clips coming up. But first, I don't like it when they do this, but they did it. They did a great job, but they got obsessed with it for over a month. Owen Schroyer, Darren McBreen, and the rest of the crew have put together an amazing video that's just gone live on Infowars.com and Newswars.com that needs to get past the censors and needs to get 10 million views. We're going to come back after the break and play it. It's new Twilight Zone pilot set in the real world. It's on Infowars.com, Newswars.com. On your Facebook, on your Twitter. Let's jam this down their throat. We'll premiere it on radio and TV on the other side of this quick break. I'm Alex Jones, and this is the Second American Revolution, reporting to you from the front lines of the information war. And, you know, it's not just a pilot. We've actually pitched a new Twilight Zone, and I've had people pitch at me from one of the larger streaming systems, actually that being produced with myself hosting it. So it's funny that the guys came up with this separately. So I gave them the headline, and they said, but is that true? Is it really a pilot? And I said, wait till I go on air. I might just tell you about it. But it's something I turned down a few years ago, but something I might be interested in now because it just got pitched at me again. But that's a whole other subject, because I don't think I would have to go be in Hollywood or be part of it. I could then see if I wanted to be part of it, and then do the intros like Rod Serling. And of course, you know, the new X-Files character, Chris Carter, says the talk show host is based on me. So they just want to get me in these shows, but then I personally want to do this more important work. So you might actually see this new Twilight Zone with yours truly hosting it. You can have the media have a conniption fit with that. But I might just do it just to spite them. I think I'm going to take a couple big roles just to rub salt in their wound, because they're trying to censor me and shut me down. I'm like, oh, you're going to do that? Let me open all these doors up. Boom, 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 boom. See how you like that? We haven't even begun to use our firepower on you, okay? We're doing it politically right here. By the way, I talked to Congressman Gates yesterday, and I said, why not have him release the memo during the State of the Union? The White House has said they aren't doing it, but Gates has put out a press release he just sent us calling for that. Look, I got to go to this video, or I'm not going to have any time. I just wanted to explain something to people. DNA Force is our flagship product with PQQ and CoQ10 and the nerve regrowth factor and all the rest of it. And we were going to come out with a DNA Force Plus that had even more of the ingredients at an even lower price. And because of contractual things and stuff, we weren't able to do it. That's why we came out with Cell Force, and that's what Cell Force is really DNA Force Plus. More of the ingredient and even lower price, and it's now massively discounted, 50% off at InfoWarsStore.com. But take advantage of that while supplies last. It is selling out, and we're going to come back out with it as DNA Force Plus, because now we've got an authorization to do that. Right now, though, let's go ahead and go to the Twilight Zone here in the real world.
Imagine a world where reality has no bounds. A time and place dictated by feelings and emotion. A land where all logic, reasoning, and common sense has been recklessly abandoned in a self-serving effort to please one's own beliefs. Only here can an individual hold two completely divergent ideas and consider it to be rational. Only here can be described as the Twilight Zone.
America 2018. The establishment controls most of the world's media and has infiltrated the U.S. government, academia, and the entertainment industry. Meanwhile, rogue intelligence agencies launch a massive propaganda campaign to turn the American people against the president in preparation for a coup d'etat.
The president of the United States is racist.
He's a punk. He's a dog. He's a pig.
And he can suck my
He's a con, a bullshit artist, a mutt.
Kiss my mother ass, you bitch punk sucker.
The president of the United States is a weak man.
He's not only unfit to be president. In my book, his lack of empathy, his lack of leadership, his lack of courage, he's unfit to be human.
He is clearly trying to ignite a civil war in this country.
This is CNN.
You got to get mad. You got to say, I'm an American citizen.
This is CNN.
My democracy has value.
Yes, I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
Donald J. Trump is president of the United States.
It's crazy. Look at the anger, the hate.
You're a f***ing anti-American.
I'm an anti-American?
Yeah.
You stupid bastard. I'm a patriot.
Oh my, what's your problem, ma'am? Hi, have I seen you before somewhere? Mindless zombies. Off. I could drop every single one of you. Look at this guy. This guy's a joke.
The good old white days are over with. The good old white days are over with. Ain't no more of them days, bro.
You white people. You think you're better than us?
We have to fight back. There will be casualties on both sides.
Protesters followed Trump supporters to their cars as they left the convention center. Around the corner and away from police protection on San Carlos Street, a mob mentality took over.
These were pure attacks. Trump supporters, men, women, even the elderly, left this building last night and walked right into danger.
They're throwing things at the guy who has a Trump shirt on. Oh, he just got knocked in the back of the head. He just got punched in the face. And now they're rushing him. Death to America. Wow.
America is divided. Social engineers have brainwashed half of the country into believing that the president and his supporters are a threat to their existence. But there is a resistance. The other half of the country begins to rise up in defense of liberty to save the republic. Meanwhile, the global elite used the spy grid to collect names of rebellion leaders in preparation for the big event. This is not fiction. This is the Twilight Zone.
Dr. Comey, are you aware that Roger Stone played a role in the Trump campaign?
Well, there's a lot of controversy around this report about Alex Jones.
It's going to get more Twilight Zone from here.
Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo.
We're saying if you're out there and you're trying to represent your First Amendment right to free speech, if somebody comes and attacks you, it's your right to defend yourself.
It got ugly. Violence erupting at the event. A fight broke out. Fists flying between Trump supporters and anti-Trump supporters.
Yeah, I want to warn the folks watching at home, you're about to see some very violent footage.
You want to fight? You better believe you got one! You say he's not your president, then you shouldn't be here. Donald Trump is bringing us together. You got that? This is the heart of 1776.
Target Assange.
Good evening, everybody. It may be time to declare war outright against the deep state and clear out the rot in the upper levels of the FBI and the Justice Department.
The media is rushing to slander and discredit those of us that are exposing this.
I'm here to warn people. You keep telling me to shut up. This isn't a game.
There are new concerns that anti-Trump FBI officials formed even a secret society at the FBI to subvert the president after his election.
So let's stop there. A secret society, secret meetings offside of the Justice Department.
Correct. Really? Secret societies? You can't make this stuff up.
Let me give you one bottom line. As a former government official, government's going to kill this guy.
You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday of getting back at you.
It's one giant incestuous circle of corruption.
Look, the CIA is a rogue agency.
The White House and the president are citing Infowars.
We have to start getting ready for insurrection and civil war because they're really pushing it. What are we going to do if they kill the president and then order their local governments and their local federal branches to come arrest thousands of resistance leaders? If they kill Trump or remove Trump, it will cause a massive civil war in this country.
This is a FEMA high-level alert.
This is a national emergency. Important instructions will follow.
Remain calm. Go indoors immediately and stay indoors.
This is an emergency broadcast from FEMA.
In compliance with the United Nations, the Department of Homeland Security has declared martial law.
City officials have called for military help. Planes and troops are expected to arrive within the next 2 hours.
You've just witnessed a warning from the future. A warning that part of the Republic will become so brainwashed and mentally ill that they volunteer their own energy for the destruction of their own country, livelihood, and prosperity, while being tricked into believing they were righteously saving the world. A lesson in liberal logic from the Twilight Zone.
We are back live. We have former prosecutor and, of course, syndicated talk show host Lionel joining us. I saw him this morning on the Real News with David Knight. Very powerful info. So I thought, wow, come back on this show and please recap what you were just saying. He's coming up at the bottom of the hour. We have some excerpts of on C-SPAN, but also with us yesterday with Congressman Gates. That's coming up, dealing with some really serious issues in the memo. And then other incredible news, like inside the bizarre world of human-chimp hybrids known as humanzees, as a renowned scientist gets into the base in Georgia and other areas where they've been developing these. And this is 50-year-old technology, okay? Just like you can have a horse and a zebra can have a baby, or a donkey and a horse can have a mule, or a lion and a tiger can have a liger. It's a little bit harder to do, but they're able to do it. And the argument is, do they have more rights than a chimpanzee? And the reason this is such an important story is this is how they take things that are going on, but never really talk about it in the media. And so people think it's a conspiracy theory. That's one of the big things I get attacked for. I mean, for 30 years, they admit they have animal-human hybrids they kill at the embryonic level. Well, they've been keeping them alive. It's not just humanzees. So I'm going to be talking about that, too. Before I go any further, though, earlier I tried to mention this and tried to get into this, and I didn't really give it any justice. So I'm going to do that right now because it's such a big deal. We are back live now into hour number 2. Thank you so much for joining us. The wheels are coming off. The walls are closing in. The engine of globalism, it has blown up. I've got a stack of articles I'm going to get to here in a few minutes. If I can find them in the stack. I was looking during the break where just all across Europe, they've had 11 elections in the last 2 years, and in every country, the populists, the nationalists, the anti-globalists, the free marketers, the libertarians, the conservatives have won. And really the trailblazer of all this was Berlusconi. And that's why we've got joining us coming up in the third hour, Leo Zagami, because he was the guy when I was in Rome a few years ago who really explained to me that it was Berlusconi that advised Putin on nationalism and a bunch of other issues, not taking away from Putin, and that it was Berlusconi pushing nationalism all over Europe, and that it was Berlusconi that would be the model of the new populism that would sweep the planet. And I saw mainstream articles today admitting basically that. So I got to tell you, I really respect Zagami. I used to think 10 years ago he was nuts when I first learned about him, just because it sounded so crazy. You know, the pedophile rings in the Vatican were going to put a black pope in, by black pope, a Jesuit, and then it would probably be this current pope. And they'd never had a Jesuit before, as a pope. It's kind of persona non grata. It's not officially a canon that it's illegal, but you don't do it because it's the protectionary group, supposedly Society of Jesus, set up by Loyola, 500 years ago. So how is that then? If it's the Praetorian Guard, then how is it going to have a pope? That's a conflict of interest. So you've got this admitted Marxist Jesuit now who used blackmail to get control of the Vatican. And that even came out in The Guardian years after Zagami first broke it down. Yeah, there it is. He's back. How Silvio Berlusconi staged a political resurrection. They say he's a bad guy because he likes 25-year-old supermodels. Hey, man, he's not a pedophile. I say more power to him. You know what I mean? That's his big crime is he likes women. He's got a bunch of kids. So it's Trump's crime. It's my crime. I admit to it. Anyways, the bottom line here is that a lot of crazy things are going on right now. And we're chronicling this as it unfolds. They had another election in the Czech Republic. Just went to the nationalist. When I say 11 or 12, there's been a bunch of special elections and a bunch of parliamentary that I can't even keep track. There's been like 5 in Germany. The populists have won every one of those. But Merkel had this coalition, such a monopoly, like 80+% of the votes, that it took 5 elections to have her down to, she was going to be out of office, but then they did some other deals where, when you got a dozen or more big parties to where she's still hanging on. But yeah, pro-Trump Czech president who warned of organized invasion of migrants wins re-election. And then, again, the same thing in Austria, the same thing in Spain, the same thing in Greece, the same thing in Italy, the same thing in Iceland, the same thing in England, on and on and on and on and on. This is so exciting. But moving along into what I want to recap here, we have MSNBC so-called analyst basically saying Representative Nunes must be a Russian agent because he doesn't want an illegal Clinton cabal caught red-handed inside the Justice Department and FBI making up fake intelligence to try to overthrow a sitting president and stop an American recovery. I mean, you guys are the ones that have been financed by George Soros and others and get taxpayer money and are selling us out to globalists. You're the ones that are the foreign power. Here's that clip.
Possible that the Republican chairman of the House Intel Committee has been compromised by the Russians? Is it possible that they actually have a Russian agent running the House Intel Committee on the Republican side?
I hope that's not the case. I certainly have no information to suggest that it is. I think that
doesn't his behavior speak of that, though? I mean, I'm not the first person who's raised this. He's behaving like someone who's been compromised, and there are people in the Intelligence Committee, in the intelligence community, and others with great expertise in this area who look at him and say, that guy's been compromised.
Well, I don't have that expertise. What I also know is that there are plenty of Republicans who simply instinctually act in a way to protect their president, and his actions would certainly comport.
Okay, let's stop right there with these guys. I mean, it's like Monty Python. A witch, a witch, a witch. How do we know she's a witch? Well, if we throw her in the water and she floats, we know she's a witch because witches are made of wood. But if she sinks and dies, we know she's not a witch. But either way, she dies. Good, good, good. Throw in the water. Witch, witch, witch. And then there's no way to get out of it. It's like, admit you murdered penguins on blue moons. And you're just like, I can't prove I don't murder penguins on blue moons. Incidentally, we're about to have a blue moon next month, they're saying. Very rare occurrence. And it just goes on and on and on and on. And then they say, everyone on Twitter that's pro-Trump is a Russian bot. And then companies do analysis and say none of these are Russian bots. Schiff doesn't care. He's leveling his dirty finger at all of you and saying you're Russian agents because, again, they're the outside globalist power. Speaking Speaking of Nancy Pelosi, I already played the clips of her total meltdown with Cuomo. I mean, they are so scared of the memo. And notice they've gone from saying it's not real, there's nothing there, to don't release it. Oh, no, whatever you do, don't release it, because it is so damning. Everything else we've already seen has been damning. Reportedly, this is like dozens more quotes just as bad. Red-handed, organized collusion. They already admit there's clips of Strzok saying, oh, my God, there's no Russian collusion. What are we going to do? We're going to get caught. Reportedly, they're talking about violence against the president. I mean, this is going to be devastating. Devastating. And I'm telling you, I feel it in my gut, they're going to pull something, that they just are cornered rats. They're used to being in power. They want to stay in power. But here's Pelosi preemptively disapproves of all of President Trump's State of the Union talking points. She preemptively tries to drive the economy down. She preemptively pushes all this bull. We're going to play that clip. And then Michael Moore says America must be cleansed of its white male privilege. Just total racism, total race baiting. That's all they've got. This is KKK behavior. Because demographically, whites, like the Democratic Party, that used KKK control before, they've just shifted the demographic and think minorities who become the majority, as we speak, will become basically Hispanic and black KKK. And they don't want prosperity. They don't want a future. They just want to be racist idiots led around by weird old people who can hardly talk, by Nancy Pelosi, instead of having prosperity and living together in peace. I mean, this is insane. So here is Nancy Pelosi.
When the president comes to make the State of the Union address, he will try to characterize his initiatives as something positive. But 2017 was a very bad year for the American people because of the failure on the part of the Republicans in Congress to get the job done. They have failed. I give them an F. The Republican tax scam has trouble in store for America.
Trump has had incredible success. We've all had success.
Benefits go to the top 1%.
But she's demoralizing you.
6 million middle-class families will pay more taxes.
Hit pause. The globalists wrote the laws with their tax exempt. Bezos and all these people that get taxpayer money on every order, they're all for tax increases. They didn't want this because they don't want you to have anything. They want to shut America down. Apple didn't want these cuts for the general public, but they wanted the corporate taxes to bring some jobs back because they can then competitively leverage out China a little bit. The point is, the establishment didn't want these tax cuts. Back to Pelosi.
Told this was all for them. But the worst part is the nearly $2 trillion that they've added to the national debt, robbing from our children's future
Total lie.
In order to give tax breaks to the rich and to corporate America. President Trump,
the Democrats have triple the money in Congress of Republicans. They're the rich, powerful group. They're the elite. That's the facts. What Trump's doing is $13,000 to the average family. Already look at wages going up. Let's go out to break with more of her babble. Here it is.
An F- because he had more opportunities, the President of the United States. So I think he'll take credit for things that didn't happen or things that happened that he had nothing to do with.
Oh, like if you have a business, you didn't build it?
Misrepresent the facts when it comes to infrastructure.
And if you've got a doctor, you can keep it?
You name it. Things that begin with an
Get her off the screen. We'll be back. So much for joining us on this Tuesday, January 30th, 2018, global transmission. We're going to be here live for the next 4 hours, and the War Room with Owen Schroyer is coming up, and we'll have live coverage right after that, right through this first key State of the Union by President Trump, and a lot more coming up tonight at Infowars.com/show, and many of our AM and FM as well as TV stations, not just radio stations, that are now picking up the transmission. As I predicted, wasn't hard. They voted along party lines to release the memo to the public unless the president bars its release, and then Congress could still go around that, but Trump has signaled he won't do that, and it should be out by Wednesday or Thursday. And so it's following the timeline that I was given by congressional sources last week. And we had Congressman Gates on yesterday in a very important interview that we'll be airing some excerpts of today, saying that these are cornered rats right now and that we're in a real danger zone because there's no telling what they're going to pull or what they're going to do, and that there are criminal investigations going on of these people. And it's believed that when the memo is made public, that is basically to embarrass the Justice Department, who's been sitting on top of these crimes. So it's a big deal. Dems left literally shaking over hashtag release the memo vote. That's an Information Liberation article on Infowars.com. Executive branch now has custody of intel memo for review prior to release. And White House spokesperson Conway has said the president will not release it. It's obviously too soon to do. Plus, he couldn't break it all down during the State of the Union. And many people are telling the president, and I agree with them, to focus on the successes and to thank the American people for seeing through the propaganda and coming together, and that a lot of the mainstream media is owned by foreign interest and the communist Chinese, and that they are here literally trying to keep Americans from getting control of their government again. That is the stake through the vampire's heart. You explain that these big mega banks are tax exempt. You explain that Bezos and others are basically tax exempt while they push world government and tax increases on the middle class. It's game over. And that's what's happening all over the world. People are discovering globalism, that it's real, that it's unelected, and it's game over. I saw a headline on CNN this morning, and we can pull it up, but I've got a screenshot of it here. It was Titans unite to attack America's tapeworm. Rising healthcare costs drain the U.S. economy. Jeff Bezos, Warren Buffett, and Jamie Dimon want to resolve that. Just document cam shot. I've got it one way or another right here. So that's the front page of CNN, and reports that Trump fired McCabe yesterday. That's not true. Right now, let's go to a boil down of Matt Gaetz on the broadcast. One of the great freshman members of Congress. He's up for election this year. Just pointing out that these guys are like cornered rats. He put a press release out today saying the president should release the memo at the State of the Union. Imagine if he didn't talk about any of it till the end and said the public has a right to know this. There was a criminal conspiracy by Hillary and the Democrats to try to keep me from getting into office so we wouldn't have this recovery. They're globalists. They've sold you out. It would devastate them. But I think the president's going to take the high road. But I agree with Gaetz. I think we should go both barrels, and this should be released. But here's some of the powerful excerpts of yesterday's interview. What happens as their house of cards falls? They've shown they never give up.
Well, you're right about that, Alex, but they're going to be like cornered rats when this entire investigation is shown to be the fraud that it is. It's built on a rotten foundation, and I suspect that they'll have to go into major defense mode over Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation. There's a lot of people that paid bribes to the Clinton Foundation that still may be getting a benefit out of this government, and when they find out that their house of cards is falling, we may see a very strong reaction, and they'll have to really start to explain themselves, because the president's shown one thing: he's willing to drain the swamp in this town.
State of the Union. We've seen year one about delivering. Trump says, hey, I've just got it started. What do you expect to hear in the State of the Union tomorrow night?
I expect the president to offer a unifying message. I expect a real focus on infrastructure and about the economic conditions people find themselves in, because the mainstream media can lie and they can cheat and they can distort and they can take things out of context and sensationalize all kind of drama that goes on here in Washington. But what the mainstream media can't lie about is the amount of money in people's paychecks. And I think that the president is going to talk to over 2 million Americans that have already seen their wages rise. They've already seen bonuses in their bank accounts, and he's going to talk about the economic condition of this of the American people. And I think ultimately that will unify our party, and it should unify the country.
That's right. It's really a question of the people are awake. They should deliver and take action. I got to ask this last question. I know you're not a vindictive guy, neither am I. You know, Napoleon got sent off to Alba, but Hillary and the globalists have committed all these crimes. There should be more investigations. Something should be done. They're always going to come back if we don't. Is somebody going to get indicted over the made-up Russiagate crimes, trying to frustrate voters, and all the crazy stuff we've seen? I mean, the money, the former FBI director, McCabe's wife getting $500,000. The president's talked about it. What needs to happen, just in closing?
Well, there have been credible media reports that the Little Rock field office is actually investigating elements of bribery and corruption with the Clinton Foundation, particularly as it relates to uranium sales that may not have been in our nation's interest. And I think that should really worry Hillary Clinton and some of the people who were paying money for influence within the Clinton world, because this is not going to be a politically predetermined outcome made by a bunch of political bureaucrats at the head shed at the FBI. This is going to be frontline work done by real field agents out in the Little Rock field office, and they should be concerned because justice may be coming to their doorstep very soon.
Wow, so it looks like Clinton world is coming to an end as America and the real world comes back. Wow, Matt Gaetz, really impressed with what you're doing. MattGaetz.com. Thanks for joining us here in the InfoWar.
Thank you.
But how are they going to strike back now? What's the establishment going to do? Well, it's in the documents that came out 3 weeks ago that have been confirmed now from the Soros Foundation and his son running it. They tried to cause race riots in 2015 and tried to trigger martial law. Let's go ahead and go to Michael Moore.
But removing him and Pence and the whole disgusting law of them in Congress and in our state capitals still won't be enough. No. We must remove and replace the system and the culture that gave us Trump in the first place. He did not just fall out of the sky and land in Queens. He is the result of a decades-long corporate takeover of our democracy and of us never correcting the three original sins of America. A nation founded on genocide, built on the backs of slaves, and maintained through the subjugation of women to second-class citizenship and economic disempowerment. That's how they've gotten away with it. As we seek to rid ourselves of Trump, we must also cleanse our American soul of its white male privilege, its voracious greed, and its enforced ignorance that has made a population of semi...
Florida, Mr. Gaetz is recognized for 60 minutes as the designee of the majority leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There is a 4-page memo. I've read it. Over 190 of my Republican colleagues have read it. Some Democrats have read it. Some have boycotted reading it. And it details circumstances that are deeply troubling to me and that I believe will be deeply troubling to many Americans.
They are going to release the memo, and they're going to make it available to the entire House. That's what they voted on. And now the memo goes to President Trump's desk, and now he can confirm whether or not to release it to the entire public.
The House Intelligence Committee in executive session, and the Washington Examiner writing about the outcome of that meeting, saying the committee voted this evening to force the release of a classified memo written by Republicans that outlines what they say are abuses of federal surveillance authorities.
Mr. Speaker, I walked into a secure vault and signed one of the most detailed non-disclosure documents I've ever seen and viewed the memo.
And after having reviewed the contents of the classified memo relating to FISA abuses, I support its full release to the public.
So that they have all of the facts. The American people deserve to see the information that I have read, that Mr. Gaetz has read, and that over 100 members of Congress have read.
I'm stunned at the previous administration's underhanded surveillance methods and misuse of power at the highest levels of the FBI and Department of Justice.
We have got to have people in these law enforcement agencies that lead these agencies and these bodies be trustworthy, who will follow the law, who will not abuse their power for political gain or purpose.
Moreover, all federal agencies, including the FBI, should be held to a high standard and always be held accountable for their actions. The issues that the memo raises must be brought to light and dealt with responsibly.
Yes, we all have a right to know what is going on with our government. Yes, I'm worried about career bureaucrats or elected officials abusing the power of the government to get information on their political enemies, like the king was doing back in the days of the Revolutionary War.
In addition to releasing the memo, I believe it's important to be releasing relevant material sourced in the memo. I am looking forward to President Trump shortly declassifying permanently that memo.
I think this is our opportunity to remind ourselves that we do have a right to be safe and secure in our persons and papers from a government that may be trying to do more than protect us. You know, maybe some of these folks in the government have shifted from, well, we need to protect America to, well, the best way to protect America is to protect ourselves and our job and our political agenda.
Let's go back now to Adam Schiff crying, freaking out because his fake memo is not going to be released to the public.
We had a separate vote on the minority memoranda, and the majority voted against allowing the public to see the minority memoranda. The release the memo crowd apparently doesn't want to release the memo now.
The House Democrats, led by Ranking Member Adam Schiff, went to the House Intel Committee tonight, calling for the public release of their memo, asking for their colleagues to declassify the memo and publicly release it immediately without giving them the opportunity to read it first.
Here's Donald Trump Jr. on Twitter. Schiff sounds like he's panicking. One memo that has been available to all Congress to read for a week will be made public, but he wants to release his without showing anyone. Same old nonsense. I think I'll win my bet that he leaks his. That seems to be his thing.
I should also mention that it was disclosed to the minority today for the first time that the majority has evidently opened an investigation of the FBI and an investigation of the Department of Justice.
Good!
Under our committee rules, of course, that
you ought to be investigated next.
Minority.
And you will be. So we already know that the Obama administration acted criminally. We already know that they colluded with the FBI and the DOJ to write Hillary off before doing an investigation. We already know that it was Obama that was the corrupt president, that it was Obama that corrupted the entire halls of government in the DOJ and the FBI.
And folks, that is what is in the document, is that Obama and others gave the orders. Then they testified to Congress, McCabe, Comey, and lied about leaking, about all of it. And so they've been caught in so many angles. I wanted to get a former top prosecutor from Florida on with us, of course, in other incarnations, a top TV host and radio host, no stranger to you guys, Lionel, the Emmy Award-winning television news decoder and legal analyst, a licensed trial lawyer and former prosecutor at Lionel Media on Twitter, LionelMedia.com, and he joins us right now. He's got, hundreds of millions of views just on his YouTube channel that he just got going recently. So it's great to have him joining us and see his analysis just exploding while mainstream media is imploding. And, of course, you've been in the mainstream media as well. Lionel, as a prosecutor looking at this, why is Pelosi so horrified? Why is Schiff so terrified after making jokes about this for weeks? They are now the pucker factor here. I mean, if you put a thing of coal in their rear end, sorry to be gross, they'd spit a diamond back out right now.
Well, we wait.
Well, if you would apply a plethysmograph to their sphincter, it would break. It would redline. You're absolutely correct. What it is this is exactly a blueprint of how the deep state, and let's make sure we understand this. You know, those individuals who tend to obfuscate tend to believe that the deep state is this term that you and I came up with all of a sudden that speaks to some fanciful, magical, conspiracy theory. It's been around. Deep state, police state, surveillance state, whatever you want to call it. But this is the blueprint. It's like reading the plans for how this thing works. And it is at so many levels. What I respectfully submit is that the president or anybody should say, look, the hell with this memo. Let me tell you what happened. And if they want to refute it, fine, then release the memo and refute what I said with the memo. Impeach what I said. We all know what's in the memo. Let's stop pretending that we need to read it, that we need to find this 4-page summary of the rat's nest and this infected, OLED, fetid world that we live in. We don't need this memo, but great, do it. Adam Schiff looks like basically he's getting a practice scope from a guy with a hangnail. He's got this look of, we're going to be caught. Let's also go back, Alex, to look at this. Think about what it is when you have the United States government manufacturing lies, creating lies, giving it the name dossier, elevating it to some status of some James Bond novel, paying for scripted fantasy lies, being paid for by the government, by Hillary Clinton, by the DNC, then using that scripted basis of lies to form the basis for FISA warrants. That is called fruits of the poisonous tree, and everything that falls therefrom, every aspect, every derivative of that initial lie gets thrown out of court. So General Flynn, if your case was involved initially in that document, Mr. Papadopoulos, if your case was involved somehow in that, and your supposed lies to the FBI were based initially on probable cause and the like created from this imaginary document, then you may have good grounds to have your plea withdrawn and this whole thing goes away. Remember, Manafort and Gates were pre-Trump. That's another story.
Sure, but again, I'm not a famous prosecutor like yourself, but I've watched Perry Mason and Court TV, both, being sarcastic. Fruit of the poisonous tree, if people get caught in frame-ups or fraud or lying to the court or bringing in fraudulent evidence knowing so, you don't just drop the whole case. You have major civil and criminal charges generally against the people that cooked up the lie.
And we also have, precisely right, and we also go back, let's go back even more, December the 21st, the executive order by the president, which said that all of a sudden we're going to hold assets seizable. And who leaves? Eric Schmidt. What was that all about? And think about the civil and criminal liability that he has. This is a Gordian knot. This is
exactly. We'll be right back. The whole thing's coming down. So it was, what, 2 years ago, in the middle of the campaign, that Obama started coming out saying, don't question government, don't talk about tyranny, don't talk about foreign powers, or you're a tyrant. And he was talking about us, he was talking about Trump, he was talking about, Hillary had just come out and attacked me by name the day before. And then you look, they're the ones saying there's these Russians involved in everything, when the Russians are not involved in very much at all, but trying to stabilize their country. The communist Chinese, even the Wall Street Journal, admit have like 100 times or more the effect. They run most of the universities, most of the companies. We've been taken over by the communist Chinese. The globalists, both parties made a deal with them, the Democrats particularly. And you just heard Lionel, former prosecutor, syndicated talk show host, smart cookie, pointing out that the fruit of a corruption, of lies, something based on a lie, from the warrant on, it all falls, and then there's civil and criminal penalties, because this isn't just against the president. Schiff says that Trump is, in a press conference, doing this for his own personal gain, and that Congress has, the Republican Party has put themselves ahead of the country. This was a conspiracy against the president, against our electoral process. And then they point their finger at everybody, including Nunes, the chairman of the committee, saying he's a Russian agent. This is the biggest witch hunt. Isn't that, Lionel, the threat? We'll go to you in a moment. But first, here's Obama back from that speech saying, don't listen to people that warn about tyranny. Here it is.
Unfortunately, you've grown up hearing voices that incessantly warn of government as nothing more than some separate, sinister entity that's at the root of all our problems. Some of these same voices also do their best to gum up the works. They'll warn that tyranny is always lurking just around the corner. You should reject these voices.
So we should reject those voices. And the media always says, Jones, you claim that you're worried about big government, but now you're embracing it. I'm for the Constitution. I'm for the Republic. I like the Federalist system. It's out of control. It's been taken over by multinationals. I want our country back. Doesn't mean we're going to be perfect, but at least it'll be our country again. And that's Trump's big sin, is he's taking the country back with the people from the globalist. But here to bring this all into focus, Lionel of Lionel Media, again, former prosecutor and media analyst, to bring this into focus. You got cut off getting into the fact that absolutely the crimes have been committed via the poison fruit. Flesh that out and other key dynamics to this.
Well, a couple of things here. First, Alex, they have this amazing ability to speak the truth, but say it sarcastically. They say, you're going to hear about people who suggest that there's a thing called tyranny. Yeah. And you're going to hear people suggest that maybe the president, Trump, maybe controls the Justice Department, that because of Article 2, because of the Constitution, that they serve at his pleasure. Yeah. And they make it sound insane. You know, a couple of things happened during the course of my history. I've been doing this for 30 years now. And when I started, it was just kind of plain old talk radio and Rush Limbaugh and ha ha, yee-ha. Well, Drudge came along first, and then you came along. And I'm not trying to blow smoke up your keister, my friend, but I mean, it was a whole new game. And then this thing came along. This ability, this genie out of the bottle that now gives us QAnon and gives us you, and now you are our deep throat. Every single day, in the old days where we would sit back prior to the internet, prior to you, prior to Drudge, prior to Jerome Corsi and others, prior to that, we would just sit back and maybe turn to a neighbor or turn to our local papers and say, gee, I wish somebody would do something. Well, now we're empowered. What they do is they actually explain the truth, but say it sarcastically. Give me an example.
By the way, what you just said is key. I've talked to people that know Trump for 45, 50 years, not just Stone. He would sit around every night around hamburgers or steaks and go, why doesn't somebody do something? Why doesn't somebody run? Why do they let them screw us? He would put ads in the paper against NAFTA and GATT. He was, his sister's a big federal judge. His family's been really involved as nationalist and populist. This is not a new Trump. It's just he had his magnet, advertiser, personality. You're up in New York. You know who he really is. And now they're so scared. It's just crazy. Keep going. Sorry.
No. What happens is, for example, this tactic of them. Jerome Corsi and I this week or a while back did something about QAnon and talking about the notion of pedophiles. Now, Alex, you have been talking about this since I can remember, about how there is an absolute real threat, existential or otherwise, of children being trafficked. Okay, you've heard the story. And what they do is, there's a group called Right Wing Watch who basically took our conversation and made it sound far-fetched by actually taking the truth, but putting quotes around it, air quotes and otherwise. It's as though people say, listen, we can't fight them on the truth. Let's take the incredible, the unbelievable characteristics of this brazen, this conspiracy against the Republic and make it sound so crazy that it couldn't be true. So what they do is, what Obama does, what others do, they say they're suggesting that there's this group of people, this deep state that actually conspired against a private citizen who dared to be president. And that because of, through these unconstitutional criminal chicanery, they basically contrived and used this FISA warrant to actually surveil him and his people, committing the most atrocious of violations of law imaginable. This makes Watergate look like a walk in the park. Now, that's precisely what happened. But because to the nescient and ignorant person who watches Colbert and reads the USA Today or whatever it is, because for the first time they've been hit, it sounds so unbelievably horrible.
That was my next question. Knowing psychology like you do and how they take truth and then make a joke out of it because they know it's beating them. Now that deep state's out, the memos are out, global government's out, they're not denying any of it. Now they're just trying to sell it. Well, it is good to have a big secret group of bankers run your life. And what are they going to do now that everything's crashing down on them? Because I'm really concerned about used to power, they're going to strike back somehow.
What they have to do is somebody's got to give Hillary Clinton up. There's a lot of people out there, Alex, in the world, very, very powerful people, from Soros to the Rothschilds, you name it, and central banksters who say, she's putting the heat on us. You know, in New York in 1971, there was a guy named Joe Colombo of the Colombo crime family who was yakking about how Italians are mistreated, and he came up with this civil rights organization, and the other members, the other leaders and bosses of the family said, we got to take him out because he's putting heat on us. That's what Hillary Clinton is doing. And to show you the unmitigated hubris of this woman, she shows up on the Grammys and has the unmitigated audacity to look us in the eye and repeat a portion of that book, that book of suspicions. And
by the way, you live in New York. Wolf is known as a fraud in New York by everybody.
And here she is laughing about the president worrying about being poisoned. And let me also tell you, the struck page memos or those texts. And by the way, Alex, you ever heard about two people having an affair who did 50,000 texts to each other? I mean, this is like Anthony Weiner. Anybody have sex anymore? This guy's taking pictures of himself and sending it. He couldn't pick these women out of a lineup. What is this, virtual adultery? They can't even get that right. And when you hear what they've said and what they've written, how they've laughed and they've mused about this president being dispatched and being liquidated, and she has the unmitigated hubris to laugh about this. Alex, she's been going on for so long with the idea that she's telling you, listen, Jones, listen, Mr. Austin, Texas, you don't know who I am. I'm a queen. I am the intended candidate. And whether you put me in office officially, whether you vote me in or not, I'm here. You didn't get the memo. I'm Hillary Clinton. I don't go away. The great Dan Hicks in his Hot Licks sang a song one time. How can I miss you if you won't go away?
No, I agree. She's like herpes. She's like herpes or syphilis. She won't go away. And when she was on the Grammys, when they finally pulled back and she did that demon smile that looks like It the Clown couldn't make that. A great white shark couldn't make it. I mean, it's so psychopathic horror movie cover. And she does it and no one tells her she looks like a psychopath. No one, when Wolf smiles, he looks the same. No one tells him, and then she won't go away. And you're absolutely right. Hollywood still thinks she's the queen, force-feeding her, even though the New York Times is coming out about her protecting sex abusers and people, reportedly. She won't go away. It's beautiful, though, in a way, that she's so insane that she won't go away.
This is a woman who stood before us and had neurological seizures repeatedly, who, upon seeing a balloon on the night of her investiture, froze like Angelo Bruno in Philly. She had a man come up with a benzo pen ready to zap her in the event she freaks out. She went through contortion. She looked at us and said, there's nothing wrong with me. But yet they talk about him eating a cheeseburger and whether he takes Lipitor a night. Do you see how they have inverted
or he didn't feed the fish right. And that's the thing. The citizen journalist caught her falling down. The media cut it at the tripping and said, Alex Jones, fake news again. She only stumbled. She did not fall down. She fell on her face and they threw in there like a slab of meat. And the Secret Service told us a month before, follow her everywhere. Follow the black van. She's having seizures every hour. Millie Weaver and Gavin Winslow, reporters, caught her a week before in Ohio for an hour in an emergency tent with emergency stretchers. And the media didn't touch it. Bombshell info. We'll be back with Lionel. I'm Alex Jones. And Media Critic has just got laser-focused analysis of what's happening. Lionel, break it down for us why the Democrats are running so scared right now.
The Democrats are petrified because the FISA memo represents a blueprint, an actual template, an actual listing, the gravamen, if you will, of an indictment of all of the crimes that have been committed, not by the prior administration, but for deep state for years. They are scared because this lists exactly the length of their treachery, the depth of their perfidy, and how advanced this treason and sedition actually are. That's what they're afraid of.
I had the former head of technical for the NSA say, no, I've gotten a high-level call. They want you to put this out today, last week. It is the main FISA report where they say 3 times, I don't know if you've read it, the Democrats came to us wanting us to commit crimes. We told them come back and rewrite this. And then sections that are blacked out are reportedly mentioned in the official new memo coming out from Congress. The media tried to spin that. They didn't deny the memo that everybody ignored. They somehow tried to spin it to make it look like I'd put out false evidence. You're a former prosecutor looking at this. How would you explain this to a jury? Because it makes my head hurt.
Well, one of the reasons I would say, and I would use the adage that you always talk about, and that you always know you're over the target when you start taking flack. And what this is it shows a couple of things. Look at the levels, look at the tendrils of this tumor and how the actual threads of this are. First, it was Russiagate. Then it was a Russian dossier. Then it was trying to either explicate or explain Hillary Clinton's tragic loss. Then it was trying to remove him via either impeachment or 25th Amendment by creating this fiction called the Russian, either the dossier or Pissgate, pardon my French, or whatever you want to call that. Now, that didn't work. That's toast. That's gone. We have habituated to that. We don't respond anymore to it. It's like a drug, the placebo effect, nothing happens. They've then shifted and they said, now we're going to get down and dirty. We're going to create and manufacture the basis of surveillance. And the surveillance will open up doors because we're going to use our GCHQ buddies to run surveillance on others. Remember how that works, Alex? They're in Fort Meade, Maryland. I'm sitting here. I'm NSA. I've got GCHQ. He's sitting right next to me. There is no headquarters. The headquarters is the clouds. If I want to go after Alex Jones, I turn to my British cohort and say, listen, you're looking for this Russian lawyer, right? Okay, good. You put a tail on her because you've got her of interest. But if you happen to pick up and expose and unmask somebody she's talking to, who I know is Alex Jones, then that's how I back-end it. That's how I get into it.
And by the way, that's in the law that they say you can't spy on your own people in America because we'll get stuff like we just had with the FBI and the Justice Department using it for political power. So we say our allies, Israel, the EU, Interpol, England particularly, going back to World War II, and now we're going to unmask and watch who we want because you can legally spy on foreigners. Then we're going to spy on who you want spied on, and that's how this whole incestuous thing. In fact, that's why they'll have foreign German or British special ops come and kill U.S. political targets. This is real secret. And then U.S. special ops kill other foreign targets for those governments. And then the argument is we're still killing foreign groups, but really you're killing your own people.
And how do you think that Russian lawyer got in there? Who invited that Russian lawyer and that special
She
visa?
was a known Soros operative that they planted to push in there.
Okay, imagine this one. Hey, listen, honey, come on in to the Trump Tower. Yeah. Hey, Nigel, look who I've got there. That woman you're looking for. You know, the Russian lawyer. Look, she's there. How do you know? Because I invited her.
Now you got the nexus point. Now you've got the point to authorize the surveillance.
And then once this starts, then we start and we look to the American people who, I'm sorry, don't know this, but they say, have you talked to the Russian ambassador? He's the ambassador. He's talked to everybody. What are you talking about? How naive are people? And then you create this. But understand what happens.
Hold on, stay there. We've got our guest joining us, Leo Zagami from Rome. But I want to come back to you for a few minutes to put bookends on this because I'm riveted. Knowing psychology and criminology, Lionel, where does it go next on the other side? I'm Alex Jones, newswars.com. Please spread that link, newswars.com.
From the front lines of the information war, it's Alex Jones.
Former prosecutor, syndicated media critic, legal analyst, Lionel is our guest. And I wanted him to finish up before Leo Zagami joins us with his amazing geopolitical analysis. It's been spot on. So we're going to talk to him coming up in the next segment from Rome, where I guess it's about 8 o'clock at night right now. But going back to New York City, and Lionel, recapping what you said and then getting into where you think they're going to go now, why they're so scared. They were so bold thinking Hillary would win. So they committed all these crimes, try to dig up stuff on Trump. It didn't work. Then once Trump won, they were even not as hubris-filled, but now more desperate, like cornered rats, as Congressman Gates said on the broadcast yesterday. Now they're really in their danger mode. Everything they've done over the last 13 months since then has failed. I guess 15 months since he was president-elect. Where do they go now? What do they do now?
Well, a couple of things here. First, you're looking at the behavior of a system, Alex, that has been unfettered, unregulated, untouched, because Donald Trump should not have won. Hillary Clinton basically said, listen, don't worry about pay for play. Don't worry about the Clinton Foundation, Clinton Global Initiative, Clinton Health Access Initiative, the missing money in Haiti, watered down AIDS drugs. You don't understand. I'm queen. I'm entitled. This is my apotheosis. This is my canonization. I am the queen. Nothing will go wrong. I go back, Alex, to the day, December the 21st or 22nd, when Eric Schmidt all of a sudden hightailed it out of there. Because you're going to find, again, like a cancer has tendrils, it has angiogenesis, it creates new blood vessels. You're going to see a tumor with markers that's metastatic. You're going to see Hillary, who's at the bottom, the foundation, the basis of everything. And a lot of people are making deals right now as we speak. I would bet anything who are saying, listen, if we give you Hillary, would you leave us alone? It gives Trump a tremendous amount of bargaining power because let's face it, he cannot completely upset the entire Republic apple cart. But if he says, okay, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. You play ball with us. Give us Hillary. Roll over. Because why did he come up with that executive order? Why all of a sudden was there this detailed executive order about human trafficking and how he could go back and basically seize assets? And when Eric Schmidt And Google, when you realize how they rewrote, because let me tell you, the next thing that's going to happen in law is, Facebook and Google, these aren't private corporations. These are to be treated like utility companies. They're going to be subsumed under the rubric and under the protections of the First Amendment, because you're going to have people who say, this is our only source of news. So he's hightailing it. You're going to also say everything that happened, everything had as its source, as its base, as its genesis, Hillary Rodham felon.
And this criminal network, it's like a alien crashes in a meteorite. The slime comes out from there. It's then a blueprint back into all the other crime networks. And that's what Congressman Gates said. He said, listen, it's all about the foundation, everybody that paid her. Now that they're not getting what they paid for, and now that they're about to get SWAT teamed, they're all going to turn on her. And they've already got reportedly FBI agents that have been gone back a year, we've now learned, and Secret Service are now spilling their guts to Congress and the president because they now believe the tide's turned. They can tell the truth and not get killed, even though their houses have been broken into, you name it. And Bongino has said it's child trafficking on Epstein's plane. Hillary, all of them, all those guys that fly on the plane, Weinstein, the big actor, Kevin Spacey. I mean, we're about to go down into the nightmare hole. And then you look at Hillary, this demon-like jack-o'-lantern. Again, going back as a prosecutor, as a criminologist, her smile, doesn't she understand that that's totally psychotic looking and that her activities are psychotic? Doesn't she get it? I mean, what's wrong with these people? Why are they so crazy? And why are there like all these weird, effeminate guys worshiping her like she's this giant, steaming turd?
Well, I could not have said it better. What you're seeing, in addition to everything and in view of the foregoing, is a system that people have never really understood how this works. And I'm telling you right now, Alex, think about this. Imagine you're Bill Gates, you're the Ford Foundation, Soros, Rockefellers, and all of a sudden they say, guess what? Did you invest in this? Did you donate to this criminal, unprosecuted, 20-year, never audited Clinton Foundation?
You're saying they're using it as a roll-up operation for hundreds of thousands of donors that thought they'd gotten in on the big thing. They're now involved in a paper play scam. You're saying it's a giant blackmail op. If you get people with kids, not enough to have them with women because, people don't care anymore, or even with guys, people don't care anymore. It's got to be with kids or money laundering, and this is all their influence operation.
Well, also, if you caught clawback, though, you can go to these people that say, listen, we'll let you off the hook. What can you tell us about Hillary Clinton? Because up till now, when you get the
No, I get what you're saying. I'm saying the Clintons were clearly using this as blackmail once they got people involved. I'm saying now it's the reverse. Use this to have them testify.
Precisely. Because, remember, go back to Bernie Madoff. Clawback is the word you never want to hear. This is all of the monies that you put in, all of the profits that you made.
So thousands of top donors are now looking at clawback of the money they invested in the fraudulent foundation.
Theoretically, that's what I would do if I was involved with this. And I would say, listen, we don't want you. It's just like when you go after Sammy the Bull or you go after anybody else or Joe Valachi. We don't want you. We want the top dog. And the best part is that when you look at the FISA-gate and you look at this particular memo, what it does is everything makes sense. You knew it was corrupt. Do you ever hear when somebody dies and they open their body up and they say, my God, we never knew that cancer was this bad. We opened them up and we had to close them up. The cancer was everywhere. The American people have no idea of the level of rancid corruption and how our beloved republic has been taken over by just this one person. It all goes to her. And think about this. And if somebody can figure out a way to explain, listen, do you really want to go down? Do you want to basically have everything crumble? Because if your allegiance to this woman...
Because it's now admitted that she had two administrations with Clinton, her husband, and then Bush worked with her, and then Obama. Clinton was just having sex with women all day and snorting cocaine. She was running around like a power-mad goblin, just getting all the names, all the controls, and the elites went, okay, you kind of run things as long as we get what we want. And now she won't go away because she was the Queen of the United States. Lionel, this is our best interview ever. You are on fire, my friend. I'm really impressed with what you do with David Knight every week when you join him. Please come join us every week here. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you, sir. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. We're going to come back with Leo Zagami from Rome, who is amazing as well with all his predictions that have come true and the latest on what's happening in Europe. I can't wait to talk to him for the balance of the transmission. Just briefly here, I didn't even... 2 more studios about to go online, and a lot of other talk show hosts are working on hiring. We are full in. Like I was saying with my accountant this morning, I haven't paid myself yet for last year, and it doesn't look like I will. But that doesn't matter. Because we are putting it all in the new crew, new equipment, and I'm not the type of talk show host who wants the private jet or the McMansion, even though I got to be behind gates now with all my enemies. It is so exciting what's going on. It's so exciting what's unfolding, and I am just glad to be part of what we are building here together, what we have set up. So again, I'm very, very thankful to all of you. Leo Zagami is going to be with us for the rest of the hour. Then in the 4th hour, we've got Paul Joseph Watson from London hosting. And then the War Room kicks off for 3 hours with Owen Schroyer, Roger Stone. And then we are going to have live coverage of the first State of the Union right through with your phone calls after it and highlights. We'll have it commercial free tonight for radio stations that want to pick it up, TV stations that want to pick it up. We're not going to talk over it except during applause. Very limited analysis. And then we're going to have clips and your phone calls after coming up tonight. So we're going until midnight tonight. And I've decided, because I love to come in here and host, and I may pop in from home via Skype, but I kind of dominate things if I come in. So that's why sometimes I can let people guest host 30 minutes of the show or an hour. I just step out and eat lunch because I want to hear them. And if I get excited, I'm going to talk over them. And I want to actually hear their original interview. So I'll probably just be remotely popping in tonight. Or I may just show up at like 10 at night here. So that, you know, that I could take a bunch of calls, because you're going to have the great Owen Schroyer and Roger Stone and Rob Dew and the rest of the great crew and, people popping in. So that's coming up tonight. We've actually got our graphic we can show folks. Infowars coverage of the first Trump State of the Union with coverage of Maxine Waters' comedy special that she's going to be having as well coming up on BET. So we're going to cover all that and give our fair use analysis of it. But Leo Zagami, before I ever heard anybody talk about how there was going to be a Jesuit pope that would end up taking over, and then you named Francis 5 years before I'd ever heard of him. And then I talked to my CIA sources, and they said, oh, he's uber bad, hooked in with Soros and others, going to bring in the Islamists, all of it. You were the first to break down how they were going to use blackmail to bring down the last pope and have 2 popes at once, and then have popes only be in for a few years and leave, getting rid of the tradition and all of it. That's why he wrote the book, Pope Francis, the Last Pope, and it's just all coming true. So I really respect you a lot, leozagami.com. I wonder why when I wasn't even following you, the trolls would attack you and say you were horrible and terrible. So I found you 10 years ago because you were being attacked. Then I kind of thought, well, maybe the trolls are right, but at least I found you and then wasn't sure. And then I saw what you said come true, so then I thought, okay, he's credible. Then I met you in Rome, and you've been on many times. You're a good friend. So congratulations on being right, staying stalwart and focused, and coming through the fire here, my friend. But that's what they say about good wine. It just gets better over time. And people know about me, despite all my issues. I'm not perfect, that they know we mean well. We tell the truth. We've broken thousands of stories. We're here for justice and the future. So, Leo, good to have you here. What do you want to tackle first? The State of the Union, the nationalism taking over Europe, you predicted, Berlusconi coming back now into favor, Putin, just so much to cover. But I want to do big, broad strokes, generality first, because you tend to drill into little facts of each story as a journalist and a best-selling author. I want to, in this 5 minutes we have to break, in the next 2 segments you'll have the floor to get into details. I want big, broad strokes, the general state of the globe and State of the Union, the state of, Italy, from Leo Zagami.
Well, I think, first of all, Alex, that the State of the Union started in Davos with Trump's intervention in the mix of this globalist front, which is gradually getting weaker and weaker. We have seen this coalition of 3 European leaders, Macron, Angela Merkel, and Gentiloni, against Donald J. Trump, losing, because in the end Trump was definitely a winner in Davos. He did and said the right things, and I think that today can only state the obvious, that the State of the Union is in a great state. So I am very happy to see that he's really doing the things he said he would do.
So continue here with the whole state of the world right now. I mean, is it accurate to say that globalism, the satanic pedophile rings in the Vatican, all of these evil operations, it seems, are being turned right now. The tide's turning. But they're intensifying their fight back, so the battle's about to be joined.
Alex, yes.
And again, we had no Skype problems until now. But it's a miracle technology, so that's why I even hate to jump in myself, because then it'll mess up the Skype, my audio back to him if he has a bad connection. Leo, please continue.
Yes, as I was saying, Trump is really giving his great support towards this war against pedophilia, against human trafficking. We saw, as you remember, a few months ago, those terrible images arriving from Libya. Fortunately, things are changing. They are trying to really cut down this human trafficking, which is, of course, then the backdoor to pedophilia and human slavery. Recently, an Italian newspaper, the main Italian financial newspaper, has actually started to talk about the reinstallment of slavery. So we are really in front of a human condition we thought that in this new century we will never encounter again, slavery. But slavery is becoming gradually an option that the liberals are really looking into as a feasible option. So it's incredible, but it's happening here in Italy, where we have thousands of people flooding, arriving from the coast, of course, of Africa every day, and George Soros supporting his own political parties, his own politicians for these elections that are upcoming. We've been talking together in Rome about Silvio Berlusconi as a central figure that will, of course, rise again. The problem has been that last week, even Silvio Berlusconi was forced to go and talk with Philip Juncker and meet together with Tajani, who is the vice president of the European Union, and basically this meeting now is kind of creating problems within Berlusconi's coalition, because the Northern League apparently was attacked by Philip Juncker, who asked Berlusconi to side them in case he will get elected again. So there is now, in the last 24 to 48 hours, a lot of turmoil within actually Berlusconi's coalition, because Philip Juncker, who is a non-elected figure, that's another important element of Trump's intervention in Davos, what he said. He said he was against the not elected figures, and in Europe is full of not elected figures. While Trump promised in Davos that in America the time for not elected figures is ended, is finished, is closed. And
Juncker is literally the grandson of the top Nazi next to Hitler and still owns Luxembourg. He needs to be arrested. We're going to come back and talk about the unelected EU, Italy voting to not let an EU army form, Berlusconi buddies with Putin, the big nationalists roaring back just everywhere. I remember you telling me 2 years ago, if they don't kill Berlusconi, he'll be back within 3 years. That was about 2.5 years ago. We sat there in Rome together. It's just incredible how smart Leo Zagami is. Going back decades, was just a lounge singer and artist. And he then began to buy newspapers and media and has just been pro-Italy. And under globalism, he bucked it, and he helped bring jobs back to Italy. And you know, the great artisanship and all the rest of it. People want to buy sunglasses from Italians. They want to buy wine from Italians. They want to buy shoes from Italians. They don't want an Italian name on it and have it made in a sweatshop in China. So they set him up. They removed him from power. But from my own research and what Zagami, who's good friends with him, has talked about, and of course Zagami's been involved in the government as well and other things we won't get into, and brought me to some of the interesting levels of Italy and some of the places, you know, off record to meet with some folks. I'll just leave it at that. They explained to me, we're going to have a big nationalist movement. Italy's coming back. Europe's coming back. We're working with other nations. Berlusconi's been talking to Putin, explaining that we need to have nationalism. And it's not like he told Putin what to do. It's just that those two were allied early on. And again, it's not about Russian interest. It's Russia understands they were overtaken by outside interest. They understand these interests are not pro-human and are really evil and are anti-Christian. So you could call Putin or even a Berlusconi, from my own research, Zagami will tell me if I'm wrong, traditionalist. And they just don't, they're not out to get Russia. They're not out to get Italy. And along comes Trump saying, I admire Putin. He's strong. He's built his country back up. He's kicked out the foreign controllers. And he's bringing back some prosperity. I want to be like that and bigger. He saw Putin, even mainstream media had said, going back 2 years ago, is the world leader, the most respected, the most powerful, even though his country's been run down, because he actually stands for something. And Trump said, imagine if America does that. Imagine, and then now it's like Trump shows up and everyone's just like, doesn't even know what to do. And they're so scared of him getting with Putin. Because you look at World War II and the natural alliances, and we're fighting Juncker, the heir to the Nazis. It's the same crap over and over again. But this time, the globalists aren't going to have Italy on their side for their world domination move. And that's my summation, talking to Leo Zagami, getting into all the geopolitical stuff. And we had dinner a couple times, 2-hour dinners. All he talked about was Berlusconi, explaining how they persecuted him, how they claim he abused women. It's the same thing they've done here with Trump. How do you see this going? Did I say anything wrong? Is that accurate what I said? And then where do you see this nationalist movement that's exploding going?
Well, definitely there is a big sovereignty movement, a movement for the sovereignty of the state. You can call it nationalist, but I will call it for the return to the sovereignty, because Italy has lost the sovereignty to a European Union full of bureaucrats who are not
But it's only Italy with its own boats blocking Soros, bringing in thousands of Africans a day. I mean, it's like Italy finally woke up, or is that wrong?
Absolutely, but now we face a big problem, because if Angela Merkel and Macron have indeed in some way found some kind of compromise, then things will be very bad for Italy. Now we face a big problem with Donald Trump in the US being so protectionist. Italy will lose $40 billion out of the Made in Italy, but it is Italy's fault. So Berlusconi indeed could be a change, a positive change. The problem is that he's, of course, blackmailable. He still has a lot of skeletons in the closet that they want to use against him. You remember how they easily kicked him out a few years back. So we need to see if Berlusconi is stable enough. The fact that now Juncker has received him in the European Union a few days ago, of course, changed things, because it demonstrates that there is some kind of deal going on. And this deal goes, of course, through. It's also the fact that in Europe at the moment we have Poland, we have Hungary, who are really breaking off from the George Soros European-led union.
Sure, he's at the heart of it. He brags about it. So let me ask you this. How are Italians from 2 years ago, where innkeepers had all their guests thrown out and African migrants are put into it? Since then, I mean, did that wake Italy up, or where is Italy politically? Because I know last year that you voted twice to say no to EU expansion and EU army.
Sure. Well, as you know, I was a candidate with Berlusconi in the last elections. I'm not a candidate in these elections, because I think that unfortunately these elections will be in a way manipulated. So in the end, we will be forced with another
Sure, you ran for the Senate and you were in the lead, and then tell folks the story. You said there were pedophiles in the government and in the Vatican. It all came out months later. You were even arrested and put in a mental institution for 2 days.
Well, of course, if you go against these people, you pay for the consequences. At that time, Matteo
so that's how but again, that's how they knocked you out of the lead. Explain that, because that was in the newspapers. I mean, they literally put you in a mental ward so you go down in the polls.
Well, absolutely. I mean, once you are put in a mental ward, you are not credible anymore. So that's it. They burnt me politically. They wanted to make sure that my revolution, what I was trying to do with the pitchfork revolution, will not have any more consequences for Italy. And the consequences were already heavy, because we managed to block the whole of Italy for a couple of months with strikes and so on. Now we have these elections on the 4th, and I tell you, for the first time, Alex, I don't really want to vote, because I don't see myself represented in any way. I think that Berlusconi, unfortunately, will be forced to compromise, though he is the only one at the moment with the Northern League to fight Soros. I have information by a journalist called Parisi that George Soros has infiltrated Berlusconi's party, and basically there is some politicians in the center-right coalition with Berlusconi that are already on the payroll of George Soros.
Well, I have to tell you, it's very hard to fight Soros, because he's got hundreds of billions more than they say he's got. as this main globalist, a literal James Bond villain. We personally have confirmed it's going to be coming out very, very soon, the documents, everything, that just like they promised to infiltrate every conservative organization through Media Matters that he funds, that we had George Soros penetration. We stopped it. We recognized it. We didn't know what it was and stopped it, but we were able to get the witnesses and the documents. So we even got penetrated. None of our core areas, but I mean, this guy means business.
Well, Open Society now is opposing openly the newcomers of these elections in Italy, which are regarded as the most dangerous. It's not Berlusconi, but it is Casa Pound. I know Casa Pound very well. They are a party which is very right-wing, far-right, if you want to describe it in that way. They seem to be very successful with people. And so now Soros is openly fighting them by doing articles on his newspapers, paying journalists to discredit them on magazines like Marie Claire and things like this. So there is an open war at the moment with this Open Society against this group called Casa Pound, which is a bit like the Golden Dawn in Greece.
And that's not associated with the Golden Dawn of Aleister Crowley, is it?
No, of course, no. But you remember in Greece there was a right-wing party which rised in the last election, in the last two elections in Greece, and was quite successful. Then they were actually some of them were killed, other of them were persecuted.
I remember.
The whole party in the end dissolved.
I remember. So we're going to break. We're going to come back, and I'm going to let you get into whatever you want to cover. You've got a lot of topics. Historically, in 60 seconds, what point are we at right now? What point are we historically right now?
Well, we are moving towards a situation of contrast between the US and the EU if, of course, Trump is doing his own interest and he's doing a great job. But here in the EU, we are in enemy territory. We are in the hands of the mondialists. And it seems very difficult that we away from it. It's been easy for you in America because you still have the sovereignty and the strong will of Donald J. Trump to fight this war. In Europe, we don't have leaders that are strong. I like Silvio Berlusconi, but the fact that he's 10 years older than Donald J. Trump doesn't make it easy when you have to fight a war like this. You need a lot of energy.
Let's talk about the will of Donald Trump from Italy. Get a really smart journalist take, Leo Zagami, on the other side of this break. And of course, Leo, it is a fact, I checked into it, is some of the biggest secret societies there are, but a good guy. Tonight, 8 o'clock Central, 9 p.m. Eastern, we'll take Trump's first State of the Union live, broadcasting worldwide. But we're going to have continued coverage right through this next hour with Paul Watson about to take over from London, England, with an amazing job he does. Wow. And then into the next 3 hours with the War Room, and then we're going to have an hour of breakdown and analysis with some of the crew, and then right through midnight tonight, we'll have hours of phone calls, excerpts of the speech, so much more. I intellectually follow my own research, but I've learned to go with my gut. And my gut tells me they're going to strike back. We've got to ask ourselves, how are they going to do it? We'll talk about Trump's will. But Trump on air, but in person many times, has told me, and of course over the phone, call that in person, that I am committed to America, and I'm committed to sovereignty, and I'm committed to Christians to have their rights, and for due process, and to not have America be singled out and set up for destruction. And Alex, I need you to continue doing what you're doing and pressing the attack. I need you to take action. You know, I'm trolling the media there because he's told me that probably 5 times, 6 times. But they never pick it up because they don't want to quote Trump saying, press the attack. That means you're already in the attack. But even though you may get a lot of losses, that's what press the attack means. Give it all you got like it's the final battle of your life. That's what press the attack means. And I'm pressing the attack because Trump's pressing the attack. And he's leading from the front. We haven't seen that in hundreds of years, a general, a president, you name it, that, like since George Washington, that leads from the front of the troops. And you're seeing it with President Trump right now. And you're seeing the economy and everything come back because we were artificially being robbed. We're going to go back to Leo Zagami. Everybody should get his book, particularly from his own website, so that you're not giving money to Amazon. But if you got to get it there, get it one way or the other. You need to read it, especially if you're a Catholic. Got so many great Catholic friends. I judge a tree by its fruits. The average Catholic I know is such a great person. Problem, like, you know, so many people like Mel Gibson, you name it, his dad, Hutton, all of them have been on the show before, obviously, Hutton. But how did this evil totally take it over? How did it do that? We'll talk to Leo Zagami in a minute. Now, before I go there,
well, first of all, Cardinal Pell, we left him a few months ago that he's waiting for the trial, and now some new things have happened. This guy called Damien Dignan died at the beginning of January. He was one of the main people who was testifying against Cardinal Pell, saying, of course, stating that he was raped. He died, and this means that maybe now Cardinal Pell could be even acquitted of this whole thing, which is incredible. They're really working the Vatican, also with a writer who has made a book on Cardinal Pell, in order to testify and that this cardinal is not really the monster that is being depicted worldwide. So Cardinal Pell is still behind the scenes trying to rebuild his image and probably in some way getting out of this trial that is being...
Well, I was about to say, he reportedly has been arrested trafficking over 100 children and this whole network, that basically the deputy pope. How does he get out of this? Because I noticed it was in the news but never covered again.
I know, it seems incredible, Alex, but the most incredible thing is that they have used as a subpoena this book that was made by an investigative journalist called Louis Milligan, that basically testifies, brings in people who gives their opinion about the whole thing, and I don't know, they are trying to turn it in a way that Cardinal Pell will be a good guy in a few months. They can't let Cardinal Pell be arrested, because Cardinal Pell is the treasurer of the Vatican, and he is really the holder to the main...
So let's be clear, they use pedophilia to take over, the globalist. Now they're going to protect the people that helped infiltrate and reportedly do it. So now that's why the leftist media is saying it's no big deal that this new pope is covering it up.
Well, this new pope, when he went in South America, he was attacked because he's protecting a pedophile who escaped from South America to Europe and is now residing in a convent in Italy. And when he arrived in Peru, he had to defend the bishop there, who himself had covered up for this pedophilia priest, who is also a very important priest because he's the founder of an organization called Sodalitium Christiane Vitae. And because he's so powerful, he's a little bit like Father Marcello in the Legionaries of Christ. They want to protect him, so they put him in this convent in Italy, and they're neglecting this tradition to Peru. So the Pope is literally protecting pedophiles right in the open, without any shame. Of course, he's been attacked by Sean P. O'Malley, Cardinal Sean P. O'Malley, because of the words he said in defense, stating that nobody had the evidence, while instead there's plenty of evidence. And at that point, even the Pope had to apologize. So Pope Francis, in the last week, Alex, has not said one word, because he has made what they call in Italy a brutta figura in front of the world while he was in South America, protecting the pedophile that they're trying to protect, which is this guy who is this priest called Mr. Figari. So, I mean, I think that Luis Fernando Figari, who is himself a Peruvian Catholic priest, should be arrested immediately here in Italy, wherever he is. Instead, he's protected by the Vatican. The Vatican is now protecting their own interest, because I have calculated...
Stay there. Back in 2 minutes with Leo Zagami. Stay with us. This is Critical Intel. Joins us, and he's saying Berlusconi has been infiltrated by Soros. He's not saying he's a bad guy. He just doesn't think in 80-plus years he's got the energy to fight this thing off. But you were getting into Trump's will from your deep analysis and your sources and Interpol and the Italian government and the EU. I mean, you know, you used to brag about it 10 years ago when you had some connections. I know you've got them now from people I've talked to. What is the word on Trump? I mean, give us your real analysis. From what I've seen, he wants to be the turnaround guy for America and the world. He sees the wave of nationalism coming in. It's not that he's perfect. He's just not a Satanist out to hurt average people. He's not a jerk.
The main enemy of Donald J. Trump in this moment of time is the British royal family, together with Pope Francis. The British royal family is actively working with MI6 worldwide to destabilize the interest of Donald J. Trump and oppose them. In Europe, basically, they want to only see his impeachment. And so Donald J. Trump has to really be aware, because the Queen of England is after him. And you heard the words of the future wife of Prince Harry against Donald J. Trump. These people...
But let's explain. These folks really aren't even British. They represent the larger Rothschild cabal, right?
The funny thing is, Alex, that I am actually related to the Queen, and this is a matter of fact, unfortunately. And my mother is part of the problem. Often I tell her she's with the enemy. I make a joke out of it, but it's true, because she's also responsible for the expats here in Italy. But there is a big problem, really, with the manipulation of power, even in the rest of Europe, made by the Great Britain, which Great Britain, in the meantime, has made the Brexit, and they are seeing the positive results of the Brexit, because Brexit is giving positive results, though of course they can't be promoted, these positive results, because otherwise the rest of Europe will fall apart. I think that these future elections here in Italy, but also across Europe, the next elections will see the increase of parties that are so-called populists, that want to return to the sovereignty. But a lot of countries here in Europe are searching for inspiration by Donald J. Trump. They are inspired by Donald J. Trump. Really,
that was my next point. Nationalism is winning everywhere. How are they going to try to hold the line against nationalism?
Listen, Alex, the crazy thing is that if you go in the street here in Italy, everybody wants an Italian Donald J. Trump. The problem is we don't have him. And because every millionaire, billionaire in Italy has brought their money abroad, and they're not willing to risk as much as Berlusconi risked 20 years ago. And when he went inside the political
so you're saying Berlusconi, even the media admits, was the prototype of this nationalism and the rebirth of populism. The problem is you just don't think he has the will. And again, his
I don't seem to hear you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Why does Berlusconi not have the will? What's the problem with Berlusconi?
I think that Berlusconi has a great politician working for him. Well, actually not working for him, but in the coalition headed by him. She's called Giorgia Meloni. Is somebody that I think you will be talking about in the next few years. Point out this name. She's called Giorgia Meloni. And I think that together with Matteo Salvini, at the moment, they will have a big success for this coalition headed by Berlusconi. But Berlusconi has to be very careful, because the fact that he's leaning towards the interest of the enemy because of his own interest, because Berlusconi is not only a politician, remember, Berlusconi. Somebody who owns a
I understand. Listen, you got to join us every month, because like 6 months goes by, you're not on. Let's set him up whenever he wants the next 2 weeks. Leo Zagami, your book, Pope Francis, the Last Pope, amazing. Everybody should get it. Thank you so much. Please join us again. I'll introduce Paul Joseph Watson in 60 seconds. Stay with us. Said
this is ad-free Alex.
When the student is ready, the master will appear. It's also been said by many cultures, by many sages, that a real master knows how little they know and realizes that their youth was squandered generally on diversions and distractions and learning lessons that they could have been taught by a master that had already gone through those mistakes. But I have to tell you, if you want to know providence, people like Paul Watson, who now for 16, 17, 18 years, since 2001, the discernment guided me to get him, to try to train him, to make him go on air, to do the things. And Paul doesn't like stuff like this. He's from Northern England, very closed-mouth folks. But the whole point is, it's a great satisfaction that Paul, in many ways, has already transcended and outmatched much of my skills. I'm 44 next week, about a week and a half. There's real pleasure in that, to see his strength and his will already at, 33, 34 years old, already beginning to surpass mine. But that's why Paul needs to help me recruit other 17, 18-year-olds like I did recruit him. Because that's really what masters do, is they realize they're not masters and they don't want to go through the same mistakes they made. That's mastery, is taking the mistakes you've made, finding someone that's smart enough to listen to you, and then get them to inculcate that and take action so that they can jump ahead of what you've done. I'll use the analogy of some science fiction book. I forget the name of it. It was Robert Heinlein wrote back in the 50s. He wrote Starship Troopers and a lot of it. And they've got this whole Earth mission going out, you know, with below light speed, multi-generations on a Ring City base that Werner von Braun and others developed, and that they admit is the only model right now to create low gravity, sustainable for cities to go into colonization programs. And if you look at that in this Heinlein book, they go through all these trials, set down on planets to get water and fuel, and they almost get destroyed, and they're basically done. They're not going to make their destination, but then they've gotten warp drives, and all of a sudden, 200 years into their mission, the high-tech ships show up to rescue them, and, oh, sorry, we got to you later. We've already colonized half the galaxy, but then we saw on the charts you were here, so we came and saved you. And I think it's kind of like that. That's what being a master means, is you realize you're not a master. And then if you can teach others what you've learned, limited, if they'll teach others, then you can leapfrog ahead, because I'm kind of some way stuck here in the muck from all the fights I've been in. But if a Paul Watson can shoot ahead into the future, and if you can shoot ahead in the future, watching and listening, that's our victory. Because what you're getting is transmissional data about how the global operation works, that if you get it and spread it, they will fail. The technocracy, all of it. So we've got the State of the Union coming up. We've got Pelosi melting down. We've got the memo set to come out. We've got so much, the tide's turning. But if we just become the cliques that we've defeated, then we're damned to hell. So, Paul, I go to my little apprentice story here. These are epic times. These are heady times we're dealing with. I want you to take over and cover whatever you want, but I want you to hit that. I'm getting out of here right now so you can balance out the rest of the hour. We'll have covered throughout the night of the State of the Union, all of it, Infowars.com/show. Hopefully you'll promote that on your Twitter and the rest of it. How would you quantify the historical moment we've entered right now? Paul Joseph Watson.
Well, I'd say it was unprecedented, Alex. I mean, you talked about that Pelosi clip, which you've obviously played. Just the anger. I mean, she was dressing down Chris Cuomo in that clip. A CNN host is one of the most anti-Trump people you can get. And the anger directed at him was still that vociferous. So there's a kind of desperation taking hold, Alex. And I saw it in Michael Moore, who gave a speech last night, as you know, again, making these divisive comments about white privilege, etc. There's an anger, there's a tone of voice that I haven't seen before up until this point, which is, with Michael Moore, for example, he thought before Trump was even elected, you probably remember this, he got up on a late night talk show and said, oh, don't worry, something might happen and he might not even be elected at all. So even way back when, before Trump was even inaugurated, Michael Moore still thought that his hysterical blowhard influence could maybe prevent a president that had just won an election from taking power. I mean, that's how completely maniacal they were way back in December 2016. You fast forward now to late January, nearly February 2018. I think they're finally starting to realize, Alex, that they lost the election, and it's finally starting to sink in. This Mueller investigation's basically going nowhere. It could be overturned with the release of this Pfizer memo. And that realization is bringing them to absolute desperation, and the realization that they've just wasted, the better part of 18 months of their lives fighting for a cause which was lost from the very beginning, which is why they're now acting so desperate, so hysterical, so maniacal, above and beyond anything that we've even seen before.
And that fraud they conducted is now threatening to bring them down. But people want to know about you personally, Paul. They want that. And so I'm simply saying the last thing for you to do is really open up for people, like you've done with me a few times, and really tell folks what you think and your real energy, instead of being so guarded about things. Just spend a few minutes before you go to break, and then I'll let you take over. What has it been like, the journey of fighting globalism, being called the kooks, no one believing us, to now global victory on every front? I mean, what has that been like in, what is it, 17 years, 16 years? How many years you've been in Infowars?
I think it started in October 2002. So, I mean, this year it'll be coming up to, what, 16 years. So it's been a long time. I mean, basically, the way I got into it was seeing a hit piece about you, Alex, on Channel 4 British television way back in probably early 2001. So the very act of them attacking you, trying to dress you down, trying to smear you, is what got me involved in this entire thing in the first place. So that's why we need to always remember that. I mean, there's a poem by William Wordsworth called "Character of the Happy Warrior." Maybe they can flash that up on screen. And it's all about taking those hits, taking those smears, taking the attack, taking the flak from your enemy, and turning it against them. Turning lemons into lemonade, as it were. There's a summary of this poem. It's a long poem. I'm not going to read it, but
who is the happy warrior? Who is he? The every man in arms.
He's talking about Lord Nelson in this poem, basically, who was blind in one eye, lost an arm, just still kept fighting on forever until his death, because that was the sole purpose of his entire existence. It's basically about the excerpt from this breakdown. All fearsome challenges he transmutes, subduing what negative qualities they may have and learning from what good they have to offer. So it's all about taking those challenges, taking those attacks on you, turning them against your enemy philosophically, and that's what that poem summarizes. So, I mean, that's what we need to do, because this is dark, heavy information. The attacks are relentless from the media. They try to drag you down. They try to make you self-doubt. They try to make you think you're on the wrong side of history. No, newsflash, you're on the wrong side of history.
And that's what's powerful, Paul, is it's not just people that have children that live on. It's ideas and books and literature and art that transcends and shows our real humanity. And that's why I know, even though they get me, they haven't gotten you, they haven't gotten Owen, they haven't gotten other people, they haven't gotten this crew. That's what's so strong, is that even if they get me or they get you, the truth transmits on. It lives forever. That is transcendent. That is the most valuable thing in the world. That's what's so amazing about it. I don't want to let everybody down myself, is because, you know, it's like we're all each other's fathers and brothers and daughters and sons. The son, the father, the son. It's just when you do the right thing, these evil people don't know what they're turning down. They don't know what honor is offering.
Exactly, and ideas are bulletproof. And, you know, I tweeted about this earlier, actually. You know, people seem to forget, Alex, that we opposed a Republican administration for 8 solid years. We vehemently opposed the Iraq war, launched under a Republican administration for 8 solid years, while the media, the same media that now grandstands as the big moral guardian of truth, supported that Republican administration, supported that phony BS war for that same period of 8 years' time. You know, they always side with the deep state. Doesn't matter who's in the presidency, whether it's Republican, Democrat. They side with the deep state. We side with the truth. That's the difference.
Soulless mercenary cowards. We are not mercenaries. We'll be back. Paul Joseph Watson on the other side. Stay with us. Spread the links.
It is the 30th of January, 2018. It is the Alex Jones Show. Breaking news. Sources say Trump wants to make the Pfizer abuse memo public as soon as possible, but not before his State of the Union address tonight. He wants the State of the Union address, the content of that, to dominate the news cycle for the next 48 hours. So you're looking at a release of the Pfizer memo on probably Thursday or Friday. Maybe they'll wait until the next news cycle on Monday, but it definitely looks like it's not going to be until the end of the week. State of the Union is tonight. It's Tuesday, so it's going to be at least 48 hours. So you would guess most likely it would be Thursday, but that remains to be seen. First of all, we're going to talk about Michael Moore. Let me know, by the way, if we got that Michael Moore clip of his speech from last night, because that's basically what I'm talking about. Headline up on Infowars.com. Michael Moore, America must be cleansed of its white male privilege. Now, this is not the first time that Michael Moore has waded into identity politics, of course. He didn't used to be into it because it's proven to be a failing strategy politically, especially over the last 18 months. So he got up at this open-air temper tantrum which these mega-rich, out-of-touch celebrities hold on a regular basis now, claiming to be the voice of the people. They're not the voice of the people, they're the voice of their own hysteria, got up again in Manhattan and said basically that white people, he's talking about white male privilege, but you can get the cue. He's basically talking about the need for white people to be cleansed from America. And he said comments similar to that, even more egregious to that before. You remember we reported on it. He celebrated directly the demographic decline of white people. He said, quote, this was back in August last year, Michael Moore, quote, the angry white guy is dying out and the Census Bureau has already told us that by 2050, white people are going to be the minority. And I'm not sad to say I can't wait for that day to happen. I hope I live long enough to see it because it will be a better country. Now, he followed that up, having compared Trump supporters to rapists, by the way. There you see the interview where he said it would be a better country once white people are a minority. He followed it up by bragging about how white people were outvoted in the Alabama Senate election. So this is not the first time that he's riffed on race. Now, let's play the clip from last night, if we have it, from the speech in Manhattan. This is Michael Moore. Let's roll the clip.
But removing him and Pence and the whole disgusting lot of them in Congress and in our state capitals still won't be enough. No. We must remove and replace the system and the culture that gave us Trump in the first place. He did not just fall out of the sky and land in Queens. He is the result of a decades-long corporate takeover of our democracy and of us never correcting the three original sins of America. A nation founded on genocide, built on the backs of slaves, and maintained through the subjugation of women to second-class citizenship and economic disempowerment. That's how they've gotten away with it. As we seek to rid ourselves of Trump, we must also cleanse our American soul of its white male privilege, its voracious greed, and its enforced ignorance that has made a population of semi-literate and unaware people.
So they have the hysterical, angry, vicious Michael Moore, again, talking about, oh, we were founded on original sin. White people were the first in the world to end slavery. How many times do we need to make that historical point? Okay, William Wilberforce literally going over to slave colonies, liberating slaves. He's talking about the subjugation of women as second-class citizens. What in the hell are you talking about? You've still got women in Iran to this day being locked up because they remove their hijab. Nowhere else on earth have women been given more opportunities than in the United States of America. What on earth are you talking about, you stupid blowhard? Now, you could accept that this was him just playing the identity politics game, but this is a guy who is a total turncoat, a total deceptive piece of crap. He endorsed Bernie Sanders. There you see Michael Moore as Jabba the Hutt, perfect representation. He endorsed Bernie Sanders in the early part of the election. Soon as it became clear that the fix was in and that Bernie Sanders was not going to be allowed to win the Democratic nomination, far from complaining about that, Michael Moore immediately switched and endorsed Hillary Clinton, the very woman he had denounced as a globalist, elitist, Wall Street puppet, Goldman Sachs puppet, as a reason to endorse Bernie Sanders. He immediately flipped and said, oh, don't worry, Hillary Clinton's going to carry through Bernie's populist platforms. No, she isn't. I mean, this was at a point when Hillary Clinton had an 11% trust rating across America. And he said, oh, you can trust her. She's going to adopt Bernie's populist platforms. So he just brazenly did a 180, endorsed Hillary Clinton after denouncing her as evil incarnate. What does that tell you about him? Then, as I said before, when I was on with Alex, even before Trump was elected. He was saying, oh, something might happen, you never know. Then he was calling for basically Trump to be arrested, for the deep state to overthrow him. This is a guy who earned his corn being the man of the people. Remember, his early documentaries, his early books were all about how, you know, Flint, Michigan was devastated when they started offshoring all the jobs due to globalist trade policies. His books were about Nike offshoring jobs, making Americans unemployed. It was about neoliberal globalization. That was everything he opposed. And he turns around and endorses Hillary Clinton, the very representation of globalist neoliberal policies. That's Michael Moore. That's how utterly deceptive and decrepit, morally decrepit he is as an individual, as a human. This is a guy who made his, you know, early documentaries talking about the ludicrousness of war. He turns around and endorses Hillary Clinton, somebody who said, oh, we'll launch a military attack on Russia if we suspect they cyber attacked America. Everything he supposedly opposed when he was coming up, he then turned around and endorsed. That's why he's a complete sack of crap. He tried to cultivate this average Joe image. Soon as he got mega rich off the back of the very capitalist system he denounces, now he's a globalist. Oh, but he still gets up and grandstands as a man of the people, while calling for the overthrow, for the sabotage of a democratically elected president elected by the people. I mean, there's never been a more deceptive, more vicious, more underhanded sack of crap than Michael Moore. And now he's playing the race game, basically saying, oh, don't worry, all the white people are dying out. We're going to replace them with these minorities, these human shields who we pretend to care about just so they'll vote for us. And everything's going to be all right. But as I said earlier, there's a desperation in his voice. He's failed for over a year. This hysteria is collapsing. It's failing. We'll be back on the alley. Now, let's get back into the news because, of course, we have the resignation of Mr. McCabe yesterday. Now we've got Nancy Pelosi up on CNN giving Chris Cuomo a dressing down, basically saying to him, what was it that she said? You don't know what you're talking about. Absolutely insane, maniacal look in her face when she said that. To a guy who would normally be sympathetic, he's anti-Trump all the way. Now we've got MSNBC suggesting Devin Nunes has become a Russian agent. Yes, they actually said that. They've actually expanded their Russian collusion hysteria, their maniacal conspiracy theory to Congress, now saying that actual members of Congress are basically Russian agents. Now we've got this out of The Guardian. Second Trump-Russia dossier being assessed by FBI. Well, isn't that convenient? We got the Pfizer memo coming out at the end of this week by the looks of it. Now they've come out with a second anti-Trump dossier, which the FBI, which has not been politicized at all, is treating seriously. And it reads, the Russian collusion into the 2016 U.S. presidential election has been given a second memo that independently set out some of the same allegations made in the dossier by a former British spy. The second memo was written by Cody Shearer, controversial political activist and former journalist who was close to, take a rough guess, the Clinton White House in the 90s. Oh, that sounds really impartial, doesn't it? That sounds really independent. So they basically got a second Christopher Steele-style dossier, which is chock full of made-up complete baloney about Trump. Now the FBI is looking at this as part of their inquiry into Russian collusion. They're looking at it seriously, even though it was written by a hardcore Clintonite political activist. What does that tell you about their motivation as this new Pfizer memo is about to be released? House Judiciary tells FBI to preserve McCabe emails pertaining to Trump election. Now, you had the mainstream media yesterday claim that his resignation had nothing to do with the imminent release of this Pfizer memo. Well, now the noose around the now former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe appears to be getting tighter, reports Zero Hedge. Just hours after news that McCabe was departing the FBI, allegedly forced out from his position, the chair of the House Judiciary Committee Chairman, Republican Bob Goodlatte, released a letter urging FBI Director Christopher Wray to preserve Mr. McCabe's emails and all other communications before his official departure from the agency. So, of course, we had the questions flying around about him potentially telling people within the FBI to alter prior witness statements. It looks like they're trying to cover their behinds in this rush in this panic as the Pfizer memo comes closer to its public release. So now they're saying all his communications need to be preserved, need to be archived. Obviously, they're paranoid about some of them being deleted, like the mysterious disappearance of those 50,000 FBI text messages, which were later found. Also out of Zero Hedge, shocked to his core, FBI Director Wray blown away by contents of the Pfizer memo, source says. FBI Director Christopher Wray was shocked to his core after viewing a 4-page Pfizer memo, a source told Fox News' Sean Hannity. The next day, he reportedly asked Deputy Director McCabe to resign. But again, according to the mainstream media, the two things had no connection whatsoever. So we'll see. I mean, there were stories floating around yesterday that Trump was being told by members of his own cabinet, supposedly on his side, not deep state people, to not sign off on the release of this memo because it could create some kind of rancor, some kind of, real like civil unrest style situation they were talking about, given the bombshell revelations that it might contain. I mean, Nunes has played it up, Trey Gowdy's played it up, so it remains to be seen exactly how bombshell it is. Obviously, the left, the Democrats, are going to come out and say, this proves nothing. This proves nothing that we didn't already know. They're going to say it's basically a dud upon its release. Republicans are going to play it up. But now we've got a second dossier being assessed by the FBI. We've got MSNBC claiming, or at least one of their analysts, one of their guests, claiming that Devin Nunes is a Russian agent for wanting to write this memo and then have it released. We've got McCabe resigning in the media saying there's no connection, and we've got the House Judiciary telling them to save his emails to preserve his communications, obviously paranoid that he's deleting some of them to cover his behind, given these reports that he ordered people to change witness statements. Absolutely revelatory bombshell week coming up. Trump's going to concentrate on his State of the Union and try to have that narrative dominate over the next 48 hours. But then, potentially, the Pfizer memo drops. It's going to be big. We'll be back.
Live from the Infowars.com studios, you're listening to The Alex Jones Show. And now, your host, Paul Joseph Watson.
Is the final segment of the Alex Jones Show. War Room is coming up next. I'm going to get into a few final news stories, but by the way, let's get that Grammy video set up, which I made yesterday. Obviously talking about the relentless tirade of virtue signaling, which is turning off Americans in droves. Their ratings are collapsing. The same thing with the NFL. The identity politics is not working, but they keep doing the same thing. They keep trying the same tactic. They keep trying to exalt Hillary Clinton as the representative of their movement. Not a great idea. She already lost one election. You want her to lose another. Maybe we should just encourage them. But it's so boring. It's so boring. I'm sick of talking about it. I mean, we should be talking about artificial intelligence, going to Mars. Instead, we're talking about how diverse the host of the Grammys is and all this other crap. Nobody cares. We're going to go to that in a second. Bit of breaking news, though. BNL Breaking News is reporting that Donald Trump may make the memo, the Pfizer memo, public either directly after his State of the Union speech tonight or tomorrow morning. I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's going to want his State of the Union speech, the narrative emerging out of that, to dominate tomorrow's headline. Maybe it will be released tomorrow night, maybe Thursday, maybe not until next week. All it remains to be seen. But some are suggesting, there you have CNN, Trump wants Nunes memo released as quickly as possible, but not before State of the Union. Some of his insiders, some of Trump's cabinet, were encouraging him not to release it at all, so it remains to be seen. But now, suggestions that it could come out tonight or tomorrow, we'll wait and see. I think it's more likely to come out on Thursday. Let's go to the video, though. This is about the Grammys, the relentless tirade of virtue signaling that Americans are sick and tired of. It's not working. Their ratings continue to collapse. It's not resonating with anyone. It's so boring. It's so predictable. It's so stale, but they just keep doing it. They can't help themselves. Here's the clip. So the Grammys was a relentless tirade of sanctimonious anti-Trump virtue signaling, with mega-rich, out-of-touch celebrities desperately trying to outdo each other with tawdry woke diatribes. Didn't see that one coming.
Equality in a world that is not equal, not just, and not ready for the change we are here to bring. Whether you're tired, you're poor, and any immigrant who seeks refuge.
I mean, how brave must you need to be to get up in front of a self-satisfied circle jerk that already agrees with everything you say and regurgitate the same glib mantra that they're about to regurgitate 5 minutes later? So stunning. So brave. The general public aren't even allowed into this ass-kissing contest. Yet you've got the gall to get up there and claim you speak for the little people. Give me a break. Hashtag MeToo slacktivists didn't waste an opportunity to lecture us about the objectification of women.
We come in peace, but we mean business.
While girls with little more than paint covering their tits jiggled around on stage, while the audience whooped and hollered for Hillary Clinton.
One reason why he liked to eat at McDonald's. Nobody knew he was coming.
A woman who publicly attacked and privately intimidated actual rape victims.
Hillary led the effort to disparage her husband's woman accusers who were dismissed as bimbo eruptions.
Hollywood's so upset about harassment of women it invited a serial enabler of it to read a book at the Grammys. Hillary reading a fake book at the Grammys versus Trump reading a presidential speech at the State of the Union. Great consolation prize, Hillary. But hey, at least Grammy nominee Big Sean was in attendance, another noted poster child for the movement against the sexual abuse of women. Oh no, my bad, he's the guy who worked with Eminem on a song about raping Ann Coulter. He's the guy who was arrested for sexually abusing a 17-year-old girl. Maybe Big Sean should take tips from that other Me Too icon, Grammy winner Kendrick Lamar, whose most recent album honors women by referring to them as rats, hoes and bitches. Not to be outdone, fellow Grammy nominee Rick Ross likes to rap about date rape, but the award for ardent Me Too male feminist has to go to Grammy nominee Tyler, the Creator, who in his song Troncat advises his fans to, quote, rape a pregnant bitch. I mean, maybe Harvey Weinstein can return to public life as a hip-hop artist. The Grammys would love him. Lorde wore a quote by a feminist author saying our times are intolerable and calling on people to overthrow the oppressors. So I guess she must have been talking about Iran, where actual oppressors are imprisoning actual feminists for standing up for actual women's rights. No, she was whining about not being asked to perform at the Grammys. Well, cry me a river. While Lorde was praised for her vacuous platitude, Joy Via's message of, hey, why don't we protect females by not killing them in the womb, didn't go down so well. Pretty bad weekend for Jay-Z, 8 nominations and 0 awards. He also got roasted by Trump, who reminded him that black unemployment was at a record low. Oh, but money doesn't matter according to Jay-Z.
It's not about money at the end of the day.
Except if you're selling crack cocaine to black people, then bragging about how it gave you great business acumen years later. But Jay-Z really cares about African Americans. He also really cares about women, which I presume is why he was nominated for 8 Grammys. Jay-Z is all about the Me Too movement. After all, this is the same guy who gave us the immortal feminist line, you know I thug 'em, f*** 'em, love 'em, leave 'em, 'cause I don't need 'em. I mean, Jay-Z cares so much about women. He cheats on his wife, the mother of his 2 daughters. Perfect role model. Now, the Resistance is set to stage another public temper tantrum with the George Soros-sponsored People's State of the Union. At this point, what exactly are you resisting?
This is classic Trump derangement syndrome. They still cannot get past the fact that they lost an election that happened over a year ago. And what I would like to know is, what are we resisting now? Are we resisting the elimination of ISIS? Are we resisting this booming Trump economy where unemployment rate for women is now at an 18-year low, where the unemployment rate for African Americans is the lowest that it's ever been documented? Are we resisting that 270 companies have now announced that they are going to give back to their employees raises and bonuses and put more money in their 401ks since the Trump tax cuts have taken effect? What are we resisting?
Then we had to endure the spectacle of James Corden apologizing for being white. It's funny because I know numerous people who've worked with James Corden, and every single one of them, every single one, says he treats his colleagues like dirt and is a complete twat. Maybe you should apologize for that. And how did the American people respond to all this? Grammy viewership plunged 20% compared to last year. Ratings hit an all-time low. Just like the NFL, everyone's sick to the back teeth of you injecting identity politics into absolutely everything. The more you blithely regurgitate the same brain-dead progressive cliches, the less people care. Newsflash, idiots. You're not Che Guevara. You're mindless celebrities. Save us the hysteria. Save us the tedious virtue signaling. Drop the politics. Just shut up and sing. There you have it. That video is up on YouTube if you want to share it. Now, of course, we also got the figures out of Hollywood. I think they had the worst summer for about 15 years. Nobody's buying this identity politics. There you see a headline, Van Jones suggests Trump should be more like Jay-Z. Probably not, given the way the polls are going in these kind of things, the Hollywood polls, the NFL polls. They asked people who watched NFL, do you want to see more or less politics or the same? It was like 8% wanted to see more politics. People are sick of this. They're turning off in droves. That's why Vince McMahon's XFL caused a lot of buzz last week, because they came out and said, look, no social justice, no politics. Everybody stands for the anthem. We're here to entertain you. That's it. And that's all that Americans want. They're sick to the back teeth of this. Celebrities still don't get it. They're so disconnected. They still think it's a winning election strategy to virtue signal relentlessly about diversity and to have Hillary Clinton up there, the most unlikable person on the planet. It's frustrating because it's so boring to have to talk about it still, like 18 months later. But, you know, we should be calm about it. We should just let them carry on because it hasn't been a winning strategy. The polls suggest it isn't going to be in the future. So, you know, they're hoisted by their own petard at this point. But it is incredibly boring. Let's go into some other news stories right now. Fake news. Public broadcaster admits to increasing booing sounds during Trump Davos speech. This was a German public broadcaster. We've talked about those kind of stations before, where Trump gave a speech. There were basically a handful of malcontents at the back of the room who booed at the end of his speech. And to make the story all about this minority of people, this German broadcaster, ARD, artificially boosted the volume to turn up the clip, to amplify these boos that were at the back of the room, to make the story about, oh, he was booed after his Davos speech. That's deceptive. That's fake news. These are the same kind of German stations that hide migrant crime, that they don't tell you the identity of the attacker, of the rapist, because they don't want Germans thinking that maybe bringing in, 2 million people from a culture that disrespects and treats women like trash is maybe not a good idea. So they're complicit in hiding that, and they're complicit in running this fake news story out of Germany again. Facebook calling for the murder of AfD members, talking of Germany, does not violate our community standards. Basically, somebody said, quote, it's time to strike the AfD as dead. I'm arming myself now, away with this pack of pigs. Facebook responded, we have viewed the comment and it's completely fine, doesn't violate their community standards, of course. One rule for them, another rule for everyone else. The safest country for women in continental Europe is Poland. Imagine my shock. I wonder why that is. Could it be anything to do with the fact that they haven't imported 2 million migrants, again, from countries that have no respect for women? Do you think there's a connection there? Maybe. That's going to wrap it up. War Room is coming up next. Breaking news at Infowars.com. Thanks for joining us.
You're listening to The Alex Jones Show.